Given the investment and all the measures we've put in place and the risk assessments we've taken, pubs and other social hospitality sector venues are very, very safe. If you look at the actual data, and the government keeps saying they're data driven, then most of the transmission happens either in an educational setting or in the home. It's less than 2% of transmissions occurring in a hospitality sector.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson said on Tuesday that he cannot rule out tightening restrictions right after Christmas Day. In Scotland, they've already announced table service only in restaurants and pubs from Sunday. The main news again, more than 106,000 people tested positive for COVID-19 in the UK in the last 24 hours. That's the largest number in a single day since the pandemic began. The US Food and Drug Administration has authorized Pfizer's antiviral pill for treatment of at-risk COVID patients. And the US is easing restrictions that have blocked humanitarian aid from reaching Afghanistan since the Taliban takeover 3 months ago. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
This is the Onion Week in Review. Quiet and reserved temp Kevin Bright surprised his co-workers this week when they discovered that the mild-mannered 27-year-old was actually an untalented singer-songwriter.
How did I get here? It's probably a tree.
Bright, who mostly keeps to himself at work, usually spends his free time embarrassing himself at open mics across the city, and that underneath his meek and soft-spoken exterior is a terrible guitarist with no musical sensibility whatsoever.
You see him in the office, he's this quiet, reserved kid, and you would never think, oh, he's got a great voice and a wonderful stage presence, and you'd be totally right.
In other news, an Ohio Film Festival graphic designer decides to go with film reels for the O's. And getting grandma into a family reunion t-shirt is a 3-person job. The entire 144-minute cut of this week's review is available now for just $11.99 on Laserdisc. For more, visit theonion.com/newsbeat.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, where, as always, you can join the discussion, share your thoughts and opinions. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. Again, that number is 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
It's Bonnie.
And Ian.
And for those who were listening last night, there was a really cringy video from the New Jersey Health Department, whatever it is they're calling it. And I inadvertently closed the tab that had it in it and then couldn't find it. I do have it. So we're going to play that here really soon before I actually close out of it again. Coming up, though, the World Health Organization, the COVID-19 treaty. The World Health Organization is also warning governments that you can't boost your way out of the pandemic, which sounds like it would be a great thing for the World Health Organization to say, because that's obviously going to be true.
Well, apparently Germany's not listening because they're now requiring a 4th booster.
Well, you can't boost your way out of the pandemic, but we have a pill.
Well, what the World Health Organization means in this particular case isn't, hey, boosters aren't going to stop this. We just have to let it run its course and hope enough of us survive and it looks like 98.98% of us will, that we can carry on society to in some meaningful capacity. Instead, they're saying, no, you're hoarding these vaccines and they should be going to these South African countries or these African countries. So they're just upset that Western countries are, keeping all the vaccines for themselves. Also, overnight, the Tiananmen Square statue that was in Hong Kong has vanished.
Shocking.
Yeah. I mean, China has made it clear they intend to take back control of Hong Kong, and the Chinese government officially denies that anything happened at Tiananmen Square.
Right.
So, obviously, that had to go. Good news for people, though. The Bureau of Prisons has ruled that inmates can stay in home confinement after the coronavirus emergency ends. Now, for those who don't remember, because this was almost 2 years ago, the Department of Justice or the Bureau of Prisons, whoever, decided that there are too many people in prison during a pandemic. So we're going to let some of these nonviolent people, I think it was nonviolent ones, serve their sentences in home confinement rather than in prison. And then there was the question of, okay, but what happens when the pandemic ends? Are you really going to take these people out of home confinement and put them back in prison? Because that's horrible. Evidently, though, they're not going to do that. But we got all of that coming up. I want to go first to this video.
Yes. We promised it last night.
Yes, and then I stupidly closed out. This is from the New Jersey Department of Health.
Dear Santa, I don't want games. I don't want toys. Just get me the COVID vaccine.
This holiday season, there's no better gift than peace of mind. Get vaccinated today. Visit covid19.nj.gov.
These poor kids.
I feel bad for the child actor who even had to do that nonsense.
I bet no child actor actually said those words. They just had to mix them together. You want me to say I don't want toys? I don't.
Well, I wish you were right about that, Bonnie, but the fact is a lot of these kids, they live with parents who fully believe every bit of propaganda that has been spewed upon them by these government agencies in the last 2 years. They fully buy all of the claims that COVID is some sort of an insanely deadly virus and that if you don't get vaccinated, you hate grandma and the whole thing. And they've been, they've got literally Sesame Street characters who have been pimping these vaccines to them. So it comes at them at school if they go to government school. It comes at them if they watch television, and it comes at them from their parents. These kids are, I'm sure, as true believers as their own parents.
Whenever I hear a little kid's voice saying something political like that, it's just so annoying because you know the little kid didn't think it up themselves, obviously, and it's just so blatantly propaganda, and it's like either side. When I was a little kid, my mom had me wear a shirt that said Earth Day is socialist to school. And like when I think back to that, I'm just like, I didn't know what any of that meant, and I got in trouble and they made me turn it inside out.
Oh wow.
I experienced something similar. I didn't do it myself, but it was a news article many, many years ago about this 6-year-old kid who did a walkout of his classroom over something regarding gay rights or something like that. It was just so abundantly clear that the kid's parents had told him to do this, because how would a 6-year-old even learn about this issue in the first place, right? Much less be passionate enough about it to walk out. Because I didn't remember what it was like being a child until we discussed it on the show at some point. Your average 6-year-old isn't watching the news. They're not paying any attention to this nonsense.
No. But they're paying attention to COVID because you cannot ignore it. You can't. I mean, it's everywhere. And I was actually happy to see we were shopping at one of the local grocers here in town tonight, Aldi, which is, I guess, an international discount chain. And I was pleased that despite the new keen quote-unquote mask mandate, the majority of the shoppers were actually not masked tonight. So I was glad to see that.
From what I've heard from someone who recently went to Walmart, they encountered lower numbers of people in masks since the mandate than there were prior to it. Because when I went, it was closer to 90% of people being in masks, and this was without the mandate. I went a few weeks ago for some reason, immediately left because it was just full of people and I didn't want to deal with it. But it was probably 90% of people there were wearing masks, but now it's closer to 50-50. Presumably, maybe that suggests that people wanted to wear a mask, but then the government said, hey, you have to wear a mask, and they said, oh yeah, no, I don't have to do anything.
I doubt it's just random chance.
I think it is kind of random because the Moose Mart where I work, way more people are coming in masks now, which is sad. But not our regulars. Our regulars have not been coming in with masks and seem to not know anything about it.
Is there a signage on the door now?
No. Yeah, we have...
Let's talk about the signage there.
We have a piece of paper like 1 inch by 1 inch with... It is written on it. I thought there was nothing on it. I thought it was blank. But it's so small that you can barely see it, and it's the whole...
So they took all 3 pages of the COVID-19 mask mandate that was just recently released, and they scaled each page down to like 1/10,000. So it's not
Can
even
you
a
even read it with a microscope or like a macro magnifying glass?
Unless I'm severely underestimating his printer, there's no way it's got that level of definition. But sure enough, if you look really, really closely, you can see in 3 of the corners these little bitty rectangles that look like they may have text on them. And that's their mask sign. It's very well done.
Well, I'm glad that they're taking a different approach at the Mighty Moose Mart these days than they did a year ago when they actually had like a shield up and...
Yeah, we will not put the plexiglass thing back up. It was proven to not work. At least that's what my boss said, that he wouldn't do it.
Good.
I also have good news. I visited the Dutch restaurant here in Keene that I love so much a few days ago.
There's a Dutch restaurant in Keene?
Fritz.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, they call themselves a Dutch
I
restaurant.
didn't know
right?
that. I just thought it was a sandwich and fry place.
I mean, it is, but they call themselves a Dutch
I
restaurant.
love them too.
Yeah, they're fantastic, but they closed down their lobby and they made a Facebook post about how, to their knowledge, no one in their restaurant had contracted COVID-19 through the last 2 years, and no one had gotten sick at their restaurant for the last 2 years. Their ventilation system was just fine at keeping everyone safe. Their sanitation measures were doing just fine at keeping everyone safe, and they weren't going to require their customers to wear masks. If people wanted to, that was their choice.
Yeah, he never did.
No. And he's doing that again this year, except they had closed their lobby. I went by today driving through, and the lobby had plenty of people in there eating and not a mask in sight. So
that's good, because I felt like they were just punishing themselves because no cop is going to enforce it, as we've learned at the Moose Mart.
Well, as I understand it, there's nothing to enforce. I actually meant to read the mandate earlier today, and I got sidetracked and didn't actually do it. But as I understand, there's no actual fine or punishment attached to it.
There is, as I understand it, if you get warned, there's a verbal warning first.
The customer, though, not the
customer. The
business.
written warning second, and then a $100 fine. But apparently what happened over at the Moose Mart yesterday, this is what I was told by Bonnie, the gentleman who I believe is your roommate was incentivized, I guess, to not wear a mask while ordering, and then somebody called the police on him. He was asked,
hey, you want a free lunch?
Yeah. And so somebody called the police on him for that, to report him. And he waited around for the police to show up, because he could have just left.
Right.
But he waited around for the police to show up, which I guess was part of the arrangement. And the cop reluctantly showed up,
like with a big sigh,
and asked him if he was willing to give him his name so he could give him a verbal warning. And the dude, your roommate, refused to give his name, so the cop went away.
I just said, okay, thank you, and left, turned right around.
Which means that they can't track him, right?
Right. We have to do that again with someone different, though, to get a different cop and to see their thoughts on it. What are your thoughts on it? It's Free Talk Live.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the ForkFest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the ForkFest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. forkfest.party. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You're invited to join us, 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. Again, that number is 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
It's Bonnie.
It's Ian.
And I haven't actually checked. Presumably, we're still streaming on YouTube because people are still chatting there, but they hate us enough that even if we weren't chatting there, if there was some way, if we weren't streaming there, if there was some way they could continue chatting there, they would. And that's because we're constantly been getting kicked off of various streaming platforms. Twitch has suspended us in the past. YouTube is constantly doing it. Nemo TV, some others are just constantly giving us the axe for having the audacity to speak our opinions freely. And that's why we love Odyssey so much. It doesn't do that to us. We can say whatever we want there. Video.freetalklive.com if you want to find us there. We're there every single night streaming, and we can't be censored there. We can speak our opinions. We can. We don't do pornography, so we're not going to be censored there.
Probably not.
Yeah, but speaking, they would never take us down for speaking, right?
I don't think they would.
And even if they did, all of the videos there are ultimately end up on Library, which is the blockchain-based protocol behind Odyssey, and it all gets very complicated. But the summary is that we can't really be censored there. And video.freetalklive.com will take you directly to it. And if you're sick of getting censored, like the lady I saw yesterday who spent months of her life making a video analyzing sex in Star Trek, which never actually shows any actual sex, but just the subject itself got the video pulled.
I mean, have they ever even had a love scene in Star Trek? Maybe in like a movie or something? I've never seen all of Star Trek, obviously.
There was the whole idea of William Shatner's character, Captain Kirk, being a ladies' man.
Yeah.
So presumably there were some sort of 1950s, probably risque scenes in there.
Like they go into another room and you just know what's happening or something.
Maybe. Yeah, but it was the 1950s, so how bad could it have been compared to what we see in 2021?
And so she was analyzing the first series, the 50s one?
I don't know which one.
Okay.
It could have been all the series as far as I know. But she was complaining about how she appealed the decision and YouTube upheld it and said, nope, this violates our community guidelines. Stop dealing with this garbage. Go to Odyssey. Subscribe to us there. There's more than 1 million other people who are sick of getting censored on YouTube. Video.freetalklive.com takes you directly there. And we've talked on and off about the Great Reset throughout the years, which is a confusing thing. But I think it was the New York Times. If you go there and you search for they have an entire section of articles dedicated to the Great Reset. Like
it was Time Magazine, I think.
Time Magazine. This is a real thing that some world elites have planned.
Whatever it is, although it's not really clear if you actually try to figure out by searching and reading about like what they mean when they make these sort of overarching big picture statements about what they think the Great Reset is. And even the BBC article recently that came out like today to try to debunk the conspiracy theories, even it admits that it's not clear exactly what the Great Reset is.
Which is scary because it's a real thing and it does exist, and you can find the people themselves at the G20 summits and the G6 summits or whatever openly admitting that they have this plan to perform a great reset. And evidently you have quotes of people saying things like, "You'll own nothing and you'll love it."
That's right.
As though it's going to be this communist paradise where everyone shares everything or no one owns anything because you're just a serf.
Well, they won't use the term communism when it comes to the Great Reset.
It wouldn't even be communism. It would just be your same old tried and true, not tried and true, but your same old horrific socialism of just bureaucrats.
Or crony capitalism
or
whatever. I mean, the ism is not clear what their viewpoint is on what they want that to be, but they use terms like capitalism, but they're taking it to a different level or something like that. And I don't have the propaganda right in front of me here, but the Bitcoin news site actually did a summary piece looking at the BBC and Reuters quote-unquote fact checkers.
Oh, I love this.
Stories about this.
So the BBC and Reuters did a fact-checking of it.
Yes, a total coincidence that BBC and Reuters
Wait, they're doing a fact-checking of the claims of that there are people that want
the Great Reset conspiracy theorists.
So essentially what's happened here is...
I'm sorry, I just don't know what there is to conspiracy theorize about because they're outwardly saying that they want to do basically bad things. So I just don't already...
Well, they're not very clear about what exactly they want. They sort of allude to it vaguely, but it's not like they're standing up there saying, oh no, we want to wipe out pretty much all of the world population above 500 million people. I mean, you have things like the Georgia Guidestones and creepy stuff like that kind of make you think that's probably part of the Great Reset, but it isn't exactly clear. Obviously, people being tracked everywhere they go is going to be part of it. Just like farmers love being able to track their cattle and monitor them via GPS and all this other stuff now, the governments of the world want to be able to do the same to their own cattle. And that, by the way, for those who aren't listening, is us.
So apparently what happened here is Reuters came out with their quote-unquote fact check, I guess yesterday, and BBC had one from back in June. So I thought BBC's was also coming out this week, but no, that was several months ago.
And Bitcoin.com did a fact check of their fact check.
I guess you could call it that, yeah. It's at the very least an overview of what these companies are doing. So do you want to hear it?
Absolutely.
So it says here on December 22nd, Twitter trends indicate that thousands of people on social media are talking about the World Economic Forum's Great Reset agenda, as Reuters and the BBC have run fact-checking posts on the subject. According to the reports, the Great Reset has been tied to various conspiracy theories, and the initiative was launched in June of 2020, which is false. The Great Reset terminology has been around for years. It's been pimped by World Economic Forum from the last time I looked into it. I found stuff as far back as 2016, if not further.
It just became sort of popularized in 2020 because the scamdemic, so to speak, made people look around and start asking questions and realize that, hey, there's a lot of stuff here that could be related to what's going on today.
Well, plus a lot of the World Economic Forum people started coming out and praising this pandemic, it's so bad, but it also gives us a chance for the Great Reset. So they are using this to...
Never let a good disaster go to waste,
Exactly. So ever since the outbreak of COVID, an agenda called the Great Reset has been discussed across the globe. This, by the way, reporting by Jamie Redman over at news.bitcoin.com. The subject has been tied to a number of theories that claim the global elite are planning to reset society and the economy to, quote, build back better, unquote. A Reuters fact-check article says the initiative was named the Great Reset in June of 2020. That's just straight up false. I mean, it doesn't take long. I don't know who their fact-checkers are, but it doesn't take long to do an internet search for the Great Reset. Exclude 2020, right? Because when you're, I don't know if you can do it on all search engines, but with Google you can easily exclude, certain dates. And so look prior to 2020 and you will absolutely find information about the Great Reset from the past. So this is something they've been pimping for most of the last decade from what I've seen.
Well, as Facebook said of their fact checkers, I mean, they're just opinions. They're just different
protected opinions, right?
I don't know if they used the word protected, but they certainly admitted that their fact checkers are just weighing opinions against opinions.
Apparently, they didn't bother to do a simple internet search about Great Reset and how long it's been around. But going on, in recent times, Reuters journalists claim an image circulating on the internet inviting Dutch politicians to a Great Reset forum in Davos has been taken out of context. And we'll tell you more about that coming up here.
There's more about this coming up. It's a real thing. If you've heard about it, give us a call, 603-283-6160. It definitely didn't just pop up in the summer of last year. Maybe that just fell down the memory hole, though. It's Free Talk Live.
And now, time for something totally different. Intercoin is a project that's working to make crypto mainstream. We use the power of smart contracts to help any community in the world launch their own cryptocurrency. Ever wanted to release your own coin or build your own app to grow your business? Intercoin's team builds apps that have reached 9 million people around the world. And now it's time to help make a real social impact in your local community. Go to intercoin.org and join the movement. That's intercoin.org.
You know, when we first started Intercoin about 3 years ago, we had a big vision to help every community in the world have access to the same tools that large states and federations do, to hold local elections on the blockchain, to have their own local currency, shop local, hire local, and help fight the forces of globalization that have decimated some of these communities.
Go to intercoin.org and join the movement.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. The US Food and Drug Administration has approved the first antiviral pill for the treatment of at-risk COVID-19 patients. Manufactured by Pfizer, President Biden said the US hopes to make 250,000 initial courses of the drug available to American patients as early as next month. The FDA urged Americans not to view the therapeutic as an alternative to vaccines, but the White House is calling the drug a turning point in the battle with COVID-19. Our US correspondent Simon Marks has more.
Well, that's certainly how President Biden is characterizing this in a statement shortly after the FDA decision was published. He said that this is a promising new treatment option that will significantly reduce hospitalizations and deaths as we battle the more transmissible Omicron variant. And he went on to describe Paxlovid as the first ever oral treatment for COVID-19 that is being added to our nation's medicine cabinet. And with that, he says, we take a significant step forward in our path out of the pandemic.
US stocks rebounded strongly for a second straight day on Wednesday as investors seek to shrug off COVID-19 Omicron fears. This comes a day after President Biden addressed the nation about the impact of the new variant. William Denslow reports from New York.
After registering 3 days of losses, the US markets have responded with back-to-back gains. At the close of trading Wednesday, the Dow Jones was up 0.75%, the S&P up 1% and the Nasdaq up 1.2%. On Tuesday, President Biden sought to ease concerns that a rise in COVID-19 cases won't mean a return to lockdown seen in the spring of 2020. And on Wednesday, the FDA approved an antiviral drug created by Pfizer, providing another weapon in the fight against the pandemic. And in company news, Tesla closed the day up 7.5% after CEO Elon Musk announced he'd hit a target of selling 10% of his shares.
Several governments in Europe are reimposing COVID-19 restrictions as Omicron continues to spread across the continent. Spain has recorded its highest number of daily infections since the start of the pandemic. The World Health Organization warns that within weeks the new variant will dominate in more countries of the region, pushing already stretched health systems further to the brink. Benji Haya reports.
The Netherlands is already in lockdown. Germany is reinstating curbs from next week, with Chancellor Olaf Scholz declaring that coronavirus doesn't take a Christmas break. Sweden and Finland are among other nations announcing a raft of controls for the hospitality sector, such as curfews, whilst Portugal's ordered bars and nightclubs to shut. And Belgium could follow suit. These may involve the return of contact bubbles or the cancellation of large events.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live with Aria, Bonnie, and Ian, and you're invited to join us. 603-283-6160 if you would like to weigh in. on the Great Reset that we've been discussing. Again, that's 603-283-6160. This article is actually coming from Bitcoin.com. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, they've always done stuff that's just sort of counterculture because that's the whole spirit behind Bitcoin, I suppose, in the first place. So they talk about things the mainstream media doesn't talk about, as well as cryptocurrency news and getting started with cryptocurrency. Like, if you don't know anything about it, go to Bitcoin.com, click Getting Started. Take a few minutes out of your day to watch a few videos to learn the basics of this important world-changing information. Or if you just want to hear about stuff with an alternative perspective that the mainstream media isn't talking about, that's a lot of the times related to cryptocurrency. But as we're talking about here, not always. News.bitcoin.com is the place to go for that.
And luckily, the URL is owned by Roger Ver, so they also talk about Bitcoin Cash.
Yes, There was a lot of confusion on their site right after the split where they referred to Bitcoin Cash as Bitcoin and they referred to Bitcoin as Bitcoin Core. And it got so confusing trying to follow what they were talking about because, unfortunately, when I hear Bitcoin, I don't think about Bitcoin Cash. I think about Bitcoin. And when I say Bitcoin Cash, I think about Bitcoin Cash. Right. So it was all very confusing, but I think that's gone away. And now the site is much more comprehensible as a result.
But it is funny that the maximalists get mad that Roger Ver owns that URL.
I love everything about that. I love trolling maximalists, though. So for those who aren't aware, a Bitcoin maximalist is someone who believes that Bitcoin is the only real cryptocurrency and all of the others are just useless pretenders. And it's fascinating to argue with these people because of their religious devotion to this technology that kind of doesn't really work. And your key to identifying someone who's a Bitcoin maximalist is that they will ask you about the Lightning Network, or they will mention the Lightning Network at some point in the conversation, and that is, in my experience, always the sign that I'm dealing with a Bitcoin maximalist.
Yeah, well, we can do everything Bitcoin Cash can do. We have the Lightning Network.
Yes, that's essentially what they argue, and it's broken, and it doesn't work, and it's confusing and not intuitive at all. But we are talking about the Great Reset here, which is a vague term. You evidently found out that what the fact checkers did here was they Googled the Great Reset, and what they learned was that the World Economic Forum's meeting in June of 2020, they nicknamed it the Great Reset. But the phrase the Great Reset goes much more distant into the past.
That's what I thought, Arya. And so I've just been looking here over the last several minutes to see if I can reproduce what I swear I had seen before.
We covered it here on the show.
I feel like we did, yeah.
We did. It was you and I and maybe someone else. I don't remember who, but I know you and I were on the show that night.
I cannot find, at least, now I haven't looked on DuckDuckGo, but I cannot find the Great Reset previous to 2020 at this time. All of the pages that look like they're from before 2020 are just some old page on the World Economic Forum website, but then down at the bottom it's got a link to an article from now or from the last 2 years, so it's not finding actual old pages like I thought. So I don't know if this...
Are you using archive.com?
No, I'm not using archive.org on this. Oh. So just my initial researching, I'm not able to back
down the
up
memory hole it went after all.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's
very strange.
It'll be in the Free Talk Live archives. If some bored listener out there, because they do seem to be our listener base, at least the ones on the Matrix server, that's comprised of bored people, find the show in the archives where Ian and I talked about this, because we did, and we read the articles, we discussed it at length here on the show.
Yeah, I could have sworn there was...
And they existed.
Yeah, it's weird. Anyway, I can come back to the story here because they are doing their best to try to whitewash this thing. That's why the BBC, Reuters, these mainstream media organizations are hollering from the rooftops about how, oh, no, it's just a conspiracy theory. The Great Reset, it's all good. We don't really know what it is, but the conspiracy theorists are wrong.
We don't really know what it is.
Even though the conspiracy theorists have been absolutely right about pretty much everything regarding COVID-19.
Dude, I saw an article today that we're going to get into later about how now this company has developed a microchip that's the size of a grain of rice.
Oh, that's been around.
I know, but now it can tell your vaccination status just with a cell phone using near-field communication technology. So
that's convenient. Now you don't even have to pull out your phone.
And I woke up today with an alert on my phone that said there's now a COVID-19 pill that the FDA approved.
Yeah, that's for people that
US.
get it and want to, quote-unquote, reduce the symptoms.
Because the vaccines weren't enough, presumably.
No, obviously not.
So they're
100% effective.
That's why you need to get a third and a fourth.
And even then, if you get COVID, you have to take this pill to make sure you don't die from this disease that has a 99.98% chance of not killing you in the first place.
So,
how the hell are people falling for this?
It is just ever present, and some people they literally live in fear.
Turn off your television, man.
They either live in fear or they're just like, I just want to get back on with my life.
Right. They believe that by being obedient, they're somehow going to have a normal life again.
It's the opposite.
That is the case with a lot of the normal non-libertarian people I know. They got their vaccines because they wanted to take off the mask and they were told they were going to be able to do that. And now the government's like, guess what? We were joking. Put the mask back on.
Oh, by the way, the latest city. So yesterday it was in the news that Boston is now requiring vaccine passports for indoor activities. Now Chicago is the latest city. So pretty much all the big cities in the United States the biggest cities are on board with this stuff.
Yeah, which means you can't do anything if you don't have proof of that vaccine. But don't worry, it's going to be really simple soon. All you have to do is, show them where your microchip is and let them hit it with their cell phone.
Which, by the way, the conspiracy theorists were talking about 2 or 3 decades ago.
Yeah.
Yes, and have not stopped talking about it during COVID-19. There's a lot of conspiracy theorists who think there's a microchip in the vaccine. Mm-hmm. That doesn't seem very likely to me. However, They do want to microchip you because it makes their lives a whole lot easier.
Did you ever look in? I never looked into it, but did you ever look into the claims that people who got the vaccine could attach magnets to their arms?
I have not heard that.
I've seen videos of people doing it, but I haven't looked into it any other way.
Yeah,
I would be skeptical upon seeing it.
I'm skeptical initially, but
thinking that most likely someone just has a metal implant to replace their bone or something like that, and they're just exploiting people's fear. That would be my assumption.
But it's more than one video,
yeah,
right?
And the thing is, I saw this girl that I follow on YouTube just for fashion and makeup things. Ian knows who I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And she got the vaccine. She was like, I didn't know that it would be real. And she was really doing it. And it's not like I'm I believe her 100%. It's just it seems like there's no motive, just a makeup guru on YouTube.
So you've been watching, she did the magnet thing, is what you're saying. That's so weird.
That was when I was like, okay, this is really weird. It's not just, completely random TikToks. You have no idea what country it's from or whatever,
There's no apparent motive, but remembering the clown sightings that occurred in 2016 that freaked everyone out, there were a lot of people with no real clear apparent motive taking fake pictures of clowns off the internet and saying that they saw this clown out in this little small town just to freak people out. So there may not be a clear motive, but
could be for views or something.
Some views.
There could very well be one.
So the story here from news.bitcoin.com about the Great Reset, they say it's essentially an idea that claims society and the economy can be recrafted into an equitable world, one that aims to fix climate change, reform social justice, and create a different kind of capitalism. This is what I was referring to earlier, called stakeholder capitalism.
Oh, that doesn't sound terrible at all.
Doesn't sound like it's only going to be for the elites, the cronies, or anything like that.
What could that even mean? Stakeholder capitalism.
I don't know.
And they're not going to define it.
Why would they just try to rebrand capitalism? There's already a lot of people that don't like it.
Right, so that's why they're trying to rebrand. They're trying to rebrand it.
But just call it something else. I don't know. That's weird.
Well, they want to call it stakeholder capitalism. That's going to fix global warming and social justice. So
they're wrapping in all the leftist things into this new terminology, basically.
It's very confusing.
But the left hates capitalism.
Yeah, it's a weird
thing. But if
thing.
capitalism could be used to create social justice, they'd be all about it. What are your thoughts? 603-283-6160. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
A congressman recently revealed that legislation totaling 2,900 pages and involving more than $1 trillion was available to members of Congress for less than 48 hours to study and consider. That's over 60 pages of legislation per hour. Do You think anyone read the entire bill? I'm Jim Babka with DownsizeDC.org. Consider a proposal buried in a 3,200-page, $388 billion bill, which would have empowered committee chairmen or their agents to examine Americans' tax returns. When this horrible provision came to light, no one claimed to know how it got into the bill. One congressman questioned said, "I didn't write it, I didn't approve it, I wasn't even consulted." If your attorney represented you this way, he might be disbarred. But this is how Congress represents you every day. That's why DownsizeDC.org has created the Read the Bills Act. You can force Congress to read their bills before they pass them at DownsizeDC.org.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You too can weigh in, share your thoughts and opinions about this widely discussed, widely known, totally open, above-the-board project by world elites to reshape the world in the way that they think is best. And whether you agree with them or not, you have to understand why that alarms people like me who have seen the disasters of central planners over and over and over throughout human history. It always leads to disaster.
I just can't imagine thinking that even the way that I live day to day is best for me. I can't imagine forcing someone else to live the way I live.
Well, the elites don't want to force us to live the way that they live. They want to force us to be peasants who don't own anything, and who are brainwashed and terrified and are just basically good little sheep for them.
You'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Good little
You'll
serfs.
like it.
Yeah. This is what the World Economic Forum, I believe, put out there several years ago.
You'll own nothing, but yet the model they're talking about is something called stakeholder capitalism, which is apparently a system in which corporations are oriented to serve the interests of all of their stakeholders, such as customers, suppliers, employees, shareholders, and local communities. Under this system,
means government.
It does.
Yeah.
Under this system, a company's purpose is to create long-term value and not to maximize profits. So they want to rewire human nature somehow so that a person who runs a company is somehow not interested in maximizing profits. You know, however, how you could maximize profits while also making sure that customers, suppliers, employees, shareholders, and communities relying on these companies are all happy and benefiting from the situation would be to have an actual free market.
Get rid of all the things regulating them from doing things the way that would be best for them.
I suspect that is not what they are proposing.
No, they're proposing to rewrite human nature so that people aren't motivated by profit.
Well, what I see here is a bunch of gobbledygook. Now, where are you getting that definition from?
That came from Investopedia.
So I actually have an article by Klaus Schwab.
Who wrote an entire book about this crap.
Yeah, he's like the head of the World Economic Forum. He's the founder of it. He's the creepy guy. Whenever you see the pictures of the dude from the World Economic Forum, he's this bald old man. He wears like really creepy sort of, I don't know how to describe the clothing, but it looks like something you'd see at like the Bohemian Grove ceremony or whatever.
He has really gross old man spots on his face.
Well, he's got really gross ideas as well,
Yeah.
for whatever that's worth.
And so
I got to see what this guy looks like, though, because between the description the two of you just gave, I'm picturing he looks kind of like Droopy the dog from those cartoons. I mean, honestly.
So I'm going to take you into this story here. Maybe we'll get back to the Bitcoin.com on this World Economic Forum Great Reset. But let's just see if we can make heads or tails out of this. This whole article is about what kind of capitalism do we want? And then he gets into what he describes as 3 different kinds of capitalism. He says there's shareholder capitalism, which is embraced by most Western corporations, that holds that the corporation's primary goal should be to maximize its profits. The second model is state capitalism, which entrusts the government with setting the direction of the economy and has risen to prominence in many emerging markets, not the least China. But compared to these two options, he says the third has the most to recommend it. Stakeholder capitalism, a model I first proposed a half-century ago.
Oh, yeah. Isn't he important?
Positions private corporations as trustees of society. Now, remember, society is usually code for the government.
And I don't trust corporations any more than I trust the government.
You
So
shouldn't, because the government is corporations.
Yeah, we're already off to a bad start here when you expect me to... Walmart and Target and McDonald's are going to be good stewards of society. I just don't see it.
He says it is clearly the best response to today's social and environmental challenges. Shareholder capitalism, this is the kind he doesn't like, currently the dominant model, first gained ground in the U.S. in the 70s and expanded its influence globally in the following decades. Its rise was not without merit. During its heyday, hundreds of millions of people around the world prospered as profit-seeking companies unlocked new markets and created new jobs. But that wasn't the whole story, says Schwab. Advocates of shareholder capitalism, including Milton Friedman and the Chicago School, had neglected the fact that publicly listed corporation is not just a profit-seeking entity, but also a social organism. Together with the financial industry pressures to boost short-term results, the single-minded focus on profits caused shareholder capitalism to become increasingly disconnected from the real economy.
Oh, so let's get rid of corporations.
He's not proposing that either, but that wouldn't be a bad idea.
I would be on board with that.
As long as it would include getting rid of the government corporations, too.
Absolutely.
Because they are the grandfather corporations. They are the ones who give birth, or the grandmother corporations giving birth to all other corporations.
I will gladly accept your stipulations.
He says many realize this form of capitalism is no longer sustainable. The question
and the issue with corporations, before we move on, is that you do have things like the Kellogg strike that even if you support these strikers and you want to, show your support by boycotting Kellogg's
Is
or
that
whatever.
happening right now or something?
Yeah, it happens all the time, but I saw it the other day. I was like, oh, they're boycotting Kellogg's again.
Yeah. Do you have any idea how many different foods and companies and stuff Kellogg's actually owns? You're not just talking about...
not Tony the Tiger.
Yeah, you're not just talking about not buying Frosted Flakes or whatever. It's an extensive list. It's almost everything you could think of that you would want to buy owned by a single company or a single corporation.
One likely says, why have attitudes just been changing on this now? One likely reason is the Greta Thunberg effect. The young Swedish climate activist...
Is that where they traumatize you to the extent that it devours your entire being and it's all you can ever talk about?
Has reminded us that adherence to the current economic system represents a betrayal of future generations, owing to its environmental unsustainability. Another reason is that millennials and Generation Z no longer want to work for, invest in, or buy from companies that lack values beyond maximizing shareholder value. And finally, executives and investors have started...
Well, that's not true at all. I mean, look at Nike and their support for Colin Kaepernick, and look at all of the companies changing their flags to... changing their little icons to incorporate the rainbow during the month of June or July, whichever the hell one is Gay Pride Month.
It's June.
Thank you. They're absolutely not just trying to portray this image of, oh, we're just maximizing profits. They're trying to convince people that, oh, yes, we care about these social issues. And by and large, it works.
Do you think that works, Bonnie? I mean, you're the youngest person in the room. I mean, do you think that people in the millennial or Gen Z generations buy all that?
I don't think that they think about it that hard. It's like if I'm at a gay pride parade and they're selling the Budweisers that are rainbow, I'm going to want that one because it's pretty.
What about if they do something even more minor than that, and they just change their logo on Twitter?
I don't think anybody goes and praises them that I know of. Oh, I'm so glad that they did this. It would be different if they came out with a statement, maybe then that people would be like, oh, they did something because they came out with a statement.
They usually do have a statement at some point during June about how they love their LGBTQ plus.
Except their brands in the Middle East. They don't say anything.
No, they don't.
People do make fun of it too, because there was this really funny video going around that lots of well, all my friends that are gay are from Texas. So if you're asking specifically about them, it's they're just not Californian blue-haired people. You know what I mean?
I don't know what you mean.
They're I don't know. They're more open-minded to my ideas and stuff like that because they're from Texas. But there was this video passed around during last June that was really funny. It was this girl that was supposed to be a butter company. She's like, we love gay, and this is why you should buy our butter. So I don't know if it really works.
It is starting to backfire. Yeah. I've seen through the recent years as companies, brands on Twitter and Facebook, they like to interact with people to seem cool and stuff like that. And you're seeing more and more of stuff look, no one's trying to talk to a company right now. Get out of here, go away, and let me interact with these actual human beings.
Yeah.
I guess to me it seems pretty clear that those moves by those companies are simply an attempt to maximize profits, right? We want people to think that we care about these issues.
But see, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
If they want to openly support LGBTQ rights in order to maximize profits, that's just proof to me that profits are doing what profits are supposed to do. They're motivating these companies to be on the right side of history. And I'm totally fine with that. Yeah. It is pandering and it's gross, but if it works for them, I mean, they can't come out against LGBTQ people at this point because that's the opposite of what they want. So it's, to me, that's capitalism doing, or a free market doing what a free market is supposed to do.
Well, we don't have a free market, but it is a market.
That's what a free market would do.
Yeah.
Except it would be a lot better and there wouldn't be force and violence and all of that.
So it's still not clear what he is talking about then, right? When he's talking about this stakeholder capitalism. He's talking about what's wrong, or what he perceives as being wrong, and he lays it on the newer generation, saying they don't buy this whole just for profits sort of thing. They want it to be prettied up with rainbows, right?
So millennials didn't just kill the housing market and the job market and the retirement market. We also killed the entire society.
But he's going to get into his stakeholder thing, and I want to see if you can make heads or tails of it coming up.
Ooh, that sounds like a challenge. 603-283-6160. What do you think about what they're saying? What kind of capitalism do you want? Or maybe just a free market? 603-283-6160.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com. Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. The US Food and Drug Administration has approved the first antiviral pill for the treatment of at-risk COVID-19 patients. Manufactured by Pfizer, President Biden said the US hopes to make 250,000 initial courses of the drug available to American patients as early as next month. The FDA urged Americans not to view the therapeutic as an alternative to vaccines, but the White House is calling the drug a turning point in the battle with COVID-19. Our US correspondent Simon Marks has more.
Well, that's certainly how President Biden is characterizing this. In a statement shortly after the FDA decision was published, he said that this is a promising new treatment option that will significantly reduce hospitalizations and deaths as we battle the more transmissible Omicron variant. And he went on to describe Paxlovid as the first ever oral treatment for COVID-19 that is being added to our nation's medicine cabinet. And with that, he says, we take a significant step forward in our path out of the pandemic.
US stocks rebounded strongly for a second straight day on Wednesday as investors seek to shrug off COVID-19 Omicron fears. This comes a day after President Biden addressed the nation about the impact of the new variant. William Denslow reports from New York.
After registering 3 days of losses, the US markets have responded with back-to-back gains. At the close of trading Wednesday, the Dow Jones was up 0.75%, the S&P up 1%, and the Nasdaq up 1.2%. On Tuesday, President Biden sought to ease concerns that a rise in COVID-19 cases won't mean a return to lockdown seen in the spring of 2020. And on Wednesday, the FDA approved an antiviral drug created by Pfizer, providing another weapon in the fight against the pandemic. And in company news, Tesla closed the day up 7.5% after CEO Elon Musk announced he'd hit a target of selling 10% of his shares.
Several governments in Europe are reimposing COVID-19 restrictions as Omicron continues to spread across the continent. Spain has recorded its highest number of daily infections since the start of the pandemic. The World Health Organization warns that within weeks the new variant will dominate in more countries of the region, pushing already stretched health systems further to the brink. Benji Haya reports.
The Netherlands is already in lockdown. Germany is reinstating curbs from next week, with Chancellor Olaf Scholz declaring that coronavirus doesn't take a Christmas break. Sweden and Finland are among other nations announcing a raft of controls for the hospitality sector, such as curfews, whilst Portugal's ordered bars and nightclubs to shut. And Belgium could follow suit. These may involve the return of contact bubbles or the cancellation of large events.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. What's the impact of the Omicron variant on retail businesses this Christmas? Well, one measure of that was published in the UK on Wednesday. It shows footfall, literally pedestrian traffic, in London's West End declined on Tuesday by more than 25% compared to the same day in 2019 before the pandemic began. But the figures were 10% higher than the Tuesday of the previous week, indicating some degree of Christmas shopping activity in London's Regent and Oxford streets. The data was gathered by the New West End Company, which represents many retailers in London's busiest shopping district. Jace Tyrrell is its CEO.
Of course, this is meant to be the West End's moment every year with customers coming back. And I think we're learning to live with COVID as businesses. And of course, we've got to understand there's still going to be challenges around that. But I think we were hoping, given November was so strong, actually, a lot of Londoners, a lot of UK customers were coming back to the West End. The theatres were going again. We really thought it was going to be a very positive end to the year as we go into 22. But of course, that isn't the case. And unfortunately, I think we're going to see some closures as we go into the new year.
He argues more support is needed to help businesses get through the Omicron wave. And he says the stop-start nature of restrictions on business activity is causing confusion among consumers who, in many cases, are taking their shopping online. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main headlines again. The US Food and Drug Administration has approved the first antiviral pill for the treatment of at-risk COVID-19 patients. US stocks rebounded strongly for a second straight day on Wednesday as investors seek to shrug off COVID-19 Omicron fears. And several governments in Europe are reimposing COVID-19 restrictions as Omicron continues to spread across the continent. And that is the latest from Feature Story News. I'm Jagruti Dave in Washington.
The Department of Health and Human Services has issued a new ban preventing the nation's saunas from any further use of tanning salons. The ruling was made after a study found that saunas are exposed to roughly 5,000 times more UV radiation each year than the average American.
They are at a very high risk of developing melanoma and orangey leathery skin. Saunas, you are tan enough.
The nation's saunas have reacted negatively to the ban.
I don't care what the government says. I just won $15 in scratches, so I'm getting a freaking tan. This sucks.
None of us have time for this shit. We've got Tammys at home to raise.
In an Onion News Network poll of saunas across the country, more than 30% argued that a pale complexion will negatively affect the size of their tips at Ruby Tuesdays. And more than half have said that their boyfriend's dentist liked them tan. And he's the father of their second child, so they want him to stick around.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, where as always, we're invited to weigh in with your thoughts and opinions. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. Again, that number is 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
It's Bonnie.
And Ian.
Talking about the Great Reset here, because recently the BBC and Reuters took it upon themselves to fact-check the conspiracy theory claims about the Great Reset. And it's important to keep in mind that when the mainstream media moves to fact-check something conspiracy theorists are saying, they're just looking to create an alternative
narrative.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you. They're not looking for the truth. They just want to calm people down so they can continue getting away with whatever they've been trying to get away with.
Well, it's interesting when they do this stuff because it's actually an acknowledgement that the conspiracy theories are getting out there in such a way that they feel like they have to say something about it. I mean, because 20 or 30 years ago, if Alex Jones was on, Austin television, railing about biometric identification, the news media just didn't care. It was just some guy on the radio or some guy on public television making claims, and it just didn't matter. But now, enough people are talking about the Great Reset. Enough people are curious about the Great Reset. There's enough theories out there going around about it that they feel like, oh my God, we've got to do something about it. We've got to get the official version of this out there. And so that's why BBC and Reuters have apparently stepped up in the last few months to do that.
Yeah, and you can't listen to every conspiracy theorist because you do have some that say things that just aren't likely, like they're secretly putting microchips in the vaccine or whatever.
Or that birds aren't real.
See, I don't think anyone genuinely believes that one.
No, they
though.
don't. There was actually an article in the New York Times that came out where the founder of the Birds Aren't Real movement has admitted that the whole thing is basically a total troll job.
I didn't know that people ever claimed to think that all birds are not real, but I could totally believe that there are probably sometimes robotic birds that fly next to somebody that they want to listen to.
I could see the government having drones that are shaped like birds. I mean, the military uses one that are shaped like flies and stuff like that.
Don't they have like cockroach-sized ones or something?
So they have some pretty fancy technology. However, the most creative thing I ever saw about Birds Aren't Real was during one of the government shutdowns where it was like, yeah, you don't see any birds flying around now, do you?
That's scary.
Well, it was also because it was like January or something, but it was a really clever thing. It's like, you're right, I don't see any birds right now, and the government is shut down. But see, I also always assumed the same thing about the flat earth believers. I just assumed no one actually believes this. This is just people trolling.
I believed it.
You believed that those people existed?
No, I believed that the earth was flat.
I did. Well, I don't know if I ever believed it was flat, but when I was much younger, I certainly believed it was only 6,000 years old and all of this other crap that...
I believe that too because of the Bible, or because of the people that say that they figured that out through the Bible by adding up all the ages of people, which I don't even believe that they did that, but...
well, even if they did, it's so demonstrably not true that as soon as I reached the age of being able to take someone more seriously than the average Sunday school teacher who isn't qualified to teach children... I realized that couldn't possibly be true.
Yeah, but I didn't believe that the earth was flat because of Christianity. Like, my parents were like, what? The earth's not flat. But I just believed it made sense because I saw a bunch of videos that would really convince you, like, if you just question everything the government says.
How old were you?
High school.
Okay.
But
I've never been a flat earth believer, and I just always assumed it was just people joking, right? Like the flying spaghetti monster believers, the people who wear colanders on their head to get their driver's license photos. They're just atheist trolling. But really, sadly, it is just a matter of time before someone actually does believe such a thing as a flying spaghetti monster exists. And that's sad. And you're absolutely right. Somebody probably already does. But when a libertarian warns you about a conspiracy theorist or a conspiracy theory, it's really, we have a pretty good track record of saying, hey, the government's going to do this, and then they end up doing it. We were talking about the NSA spying and the dragnet on emails and text messages long before Edward Snowden came out and proved us to be right. We knew from seeing the laws that the government had passed that these organizations absolutely, certainly existed. We just didn't have any proof of it. But we know how governments work, and we know they'd given themselves the authority to do this, and then suddenly Edward Snowden came around and was like, oh yeah, by the way, they're actually doing this. And it wasn't this huge vindication period for libertarians. It got talked about for a few months and then it got forgotten. Even though it's just yet another example of libertarians being right about what the government is planning. And here, libertarians are a bit concerned about this statist attempt to centrally plan every aspect of society, redoing the entire economy to focus on what they think human society should be directed toward, instead of letting human society, individuals, direct themselves and pursue their own goals and their own dreams.
Yeah, well, the people who are in search of power and who hold power cannot let that go. I mean, they can't. They must be the ones to make these decisions for people because people are just little cockroaches. They can't make decisions for themselves. This is the opinion of people like Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum.
They do view us as cockroaches. Absolutely. We're just bugs to them.
Overpopulated.
Like cockroaches tend to be. But let's get further into this article.
Sure. So this is actually about the...
yeah, that's right, because we're still trying to figure out what the hell they're even trying to plan. This is Stakeholder
Capitalism is what Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum, says he proposed 50 years ago, and he's been pimping it ever since. And so I just want to know what exactly that means, because this whole World Economic Forum Great Reset concept has been very nebulous every time I've looked to try to see what is this thing about.
Which is concerning in and of itself. You know, these governments around the world, these great organizations like the World Economic Forum, they have all of these great plans about things they want to do. But when you try to ask them, can you explain this plan? you don't get a very clear answer.
No, and I don't think it's going to be clear here in a moment. But he points to Generation Z and millennials as the reason why this change is happening now, saying that they don't want to just make profits. They want their companies to be caring, right, is kind of what he's saying here. So he goes on. He says, the result is stakeholder capitalism is quickly gaining ground. The change in direction is long overdue. I first described the concept back in 1971, and I created the World Economic Forum to help business and political leaders implement it. 2 years later, attendees at the forum's annual meeting signed the Davos Manifesto, which describes a firm's principal responsibilities towards its stakeholders.
That's coincidental. That also happens to be the year that the United States went off of the gold standard.
Interesting. Now others are finally coming to the stakeholder, which he puts in quotes, table. The U.S. Business Roundtable, America's most influential business lobby group, announced this year, and this was written in 2019, that it would formally embrace stakeholder capitalism, and its so-called impact investing is rising to prominence as more investors look for ways to link environmental and societal benefits to financial returns. We should seize this moment.
So they're still motivated by financial returns. They're just trying to find a way to profit off of pretending to care about the economy. I mean, about the ecosystem, right?
Well, I guess he would have you believe that they're not pretending. But whether they are or not is up to question.
I don't believe that Nike's really pretending to be in support of LGBT. Well, it doesn't matter to me if they're pretending or not. I don't care what their intentions are. I care about the consequences of their actions. They can lie to me about caring about the environment all they want, as long as they don't destroy it. I don't care if they genuinely believe in caring for the environment or not. That's irrelevant to me.
So what are they doing, not what they're saying?
Yeah.
We should seize this moment, says Schwab, to ensure that stakeholder capitalism remains the new dominant model. To that end, the World Economic Forum is releasing a Davos Manifesto, which states that companies should pay their fair share of taxes.
Oh, there's that word again.
No, that's the first time the word's shown up.
As a zillennial, whenever I hear you saying stakeholder capitalism, I'm just so sure that this isn't going to catch on, because everybody hates capitalism that's my age right now because they don't understand what it is. But like if you said, I am proposing this new thing, stakeholder capitalism, most Generation Z people are going to tune you out. And he said he created that word 50 years ago, so he needs to update it.
I experienced that when I ran for sheriff. The vast majority of hate that I got, it wasn't from Christians or anything like that. It was other anarchists who were just tremendously upset that I was an anarcho-capitalist and not an anarcho-communist. The vast majority of the hatred I got was from anti-capitalist people.
Well, we'll give you what this Davos Manifesto, he's got a little summary of what what these companies are swearing to do.
That's coming up. Here's 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in. It's Free Talk Live.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where we've been telling you about Intercoin throughout the last year. It can help any business or organization raise money launching their own token. And if that sounds interesting to you, you should know that Intercoin's investor token is now available on an exchange. You can find it at xmarkets.com, exmarkets.com, where you can sign up with just an email address, which allows you to actually keep your information private, which is rare for exchanges. You can also get it at Uniswap. Links to those are on their websites at intercoin.org, intercoin.org. Pick up some Intercoin investor tokens for yourself at intercoin.org, and you just might be advancing the cause of liberty around the world. With you tonight, it's Aria.
It's Bonnie.
It's Ian.
And let's go to the phones. We have Sarah, who wants to talk about communism. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live. I accidentally muted the phones. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yes, so...
You got to turn that speaker down in the background.
Okay. I'm going to the other room here. I started an echo. Anyways, I just want to say that communism, I believe that it's a more fair system for the common average person.
That doesn't work their entire life.
Because it's a system without the billionaire capitalists. And since you guys were talking about capitalists.
Well, hold on, Sarah, because I'm with you to an extent. I don't think a person can become a billionaire without utilizing the state to get that way.
That's just using the workers.
That's just what my gut tells me. Because we're not talking about someone with $999 million and all of that here. We're talking about an actual billionaire. And I just find it hard to believe someone could reach that position without using force and violence of government somewhere along the way. I could be wrong.
Just hold on to the Bitcoin long enough and we'll all be billionaires.
Fair point. But, if...
Of course, that counts on the government to print money, but that's not what you're talking about.
If there was a system in place where as soon as they made $1 billion, every single dollar beyond that just got distributed automatically to the workers or whatever, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it because it's more money than they're ever going to spend in their entire life.
Are you saying that would be a voluntary system?
Well, but
I would prefer it be a voluntary system.
From the hospitals, from what I heard in Cuba, for example, all the doctors, they work for free. They all get housing, they all get food, but they don't get paid.
Yes, they are slaves.
Okay?
That's slavery,
and
Sarah.
also, before the sanctions,
Hold on,
all
Sarah.
of the medical...
Sarah.
It was universal health care. Everybody got the health care for free, like in Canada.
Okay, I understand that. Sarah,
Universal healthcare.
Sarah, stop talking. What you're describing is slavery. When you feed someone and give them a house and you make them work and you don't pay them, that is literal textbook slavery.
Well, that is not slavery because you have the mindset of community. Your service and your life belongs to the community. You're working to service the community, not to benefit yourself.
Awful.
And that's why
black slaves in the United States were forced to do under the system of slavery.
Here's what I want to know, Sarah. Who decides? Who decides who becomes the doctors?
Well, I mean, you have to have a talent for it. So you contribute according to what you can do, what your abilities are.
Well,
and
you're not just born a doctor.
Unfortunately, your ability is just to be a coal miner, and you're going to get the same amount of money as a person whose ability was to paint pictures.
Are you saying, Sarah, that's
about it.
Are you saying that
the disabled people, the elderly people, get the same amount of what receive according to their needs, even though they cannot contribute?
But who decides who needs what?
Well, I mean that's according to each society. But the thing is,
no. There's no such thing.
Some person somewhere along the way has to make this decision, Sarah, about what I need in my life. Who is making that decision?
Well, I mean, I guess each country decide if they have enough amount of milk.
The government?
It's not a country that's making this decision. It's some person somewhere along the way deciding, Arya only needs one pair of shoes this year. Who is making that decision?
Well, can I tell you something? My great-grandmother was from North Korea, by the way, and she was from a wealthy family. And when the communists took over, they took all the rights from the wealthy people and redistributed it. And sadly enough, they had to shoot a couple of them and make other people watch them, so they would give up the rights. But
are you saying this was a good? Hold on. Are you saying this is a good thing that they did this?
No, I mean I don't think they need to, like, if we became communists, we should not grab Donald Trump and whatever, all these billionaires, and put a bullet in them. I would not see that.
No, you would rather just steal all of their wealth.
Right, they need to give it up, or at least put them in jail for a while, and make sure that we take care of all the homeless people.
For what? What crime did they commit to put them in jail, Sarah?
Who would put them in jail?
Well, I would put them in jail if they do.
You would put them in jail?
I would not kill them. I would put them in jail for a while and make them work like everybody else. I mean, look at this capital system rewards. What is it? The Hilton. They put on a show about it. She did nothing to deserve all that money. She just inherited it because the capital system rewards people that just inherit and get everything that everybody else made.
So
and eventually, by having no skills, no talent, she's just hemorrhaging money. And eventually, her family's going to run out of money if someone isn't contributing or creating or producing something.
Can we go back to North Korea for a moment here? Because I've read a thing or two. I've seen some books, read books by people who've been in North Korea and escaped from North Korea. And I guess what I'm curious about here is, did you miss the part where people were starving to death in North Korea in the 1990s due to communism?
Well, did you know they're starving people here in New Mexico? They're starving people in Appalachian Mountains going on right now today.
Okay, Sarah, did you hear the one where the North Korean government told...
You guys are laughing. Look, people are starving to death.
There's no one starving in New
You sound like David from New Mexico right now. You haven't worked since you were 17, correct?
18 years old.
Yes,
I cracked up
she's
when
now
I
in
was
her
18.
50s.
And you eat just fine, right?
Well, actually, I was kind of homeless. I ate okay, but I know that
there's no one starving in the United States. Please, Sarah, give me a break. I mean, there's things called food banks all over the place. Anyone who wants food can show up at these places, and they're literally given a box of food. They're given a hot meal. They're given plenty of stuff to go on. Look around you, Sarah. There's fat people everywhere in the United States. Starvation is not a problem here.
But you know something? I donate money to Salvation Army.
Good for you. I donate to the local homeless shelter. Congratulations.
And to Liberty in North Korea.
Sarah, I can't even say congratulations about you donating money to the Salvation Army because it's not your money. It's taxpayer money that you're mooching off of because you don't want to work. Thank you so much for the call tonight.
You can't have a conversation with that lady. I mean, look, the reality is in the 1990s in North Korea, they were eating grass.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they did not have food.
People were literally selling their children because they couldn't afford to feed them.
Sorry that stealing the rice that some rich people had wasn't a sustainable model.
No, it wasn't.
Of having food for the rest of eternity. We can share it.
Right. Once you steal the rice and distribute it, it's gone. No one else is making more because communism cannot centrally plan resources.
And let's not forget her outright advocation of slavery as a solution to societal problems.
Prison.
603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. The US Food and Drug Administration has approved the first antiviral pill for the treatment of at-risk COVID-19 patients. Manufactured by Pfizer, President Biden said the US hopes to make 250,000 initial courses of the drug available to American patients as early as next month. The FDA urged Americans not to view the therapeutic as an alternative to vaccines, but the White House is calling the drug a turning point in the battle with COVID-19. Our US correspondent Simon Marks has more.
Well, that's certainly how President Biden is characterizing this. In a statement shortly after the FDA decision was published, he said that this is a promising new treatment option that will significantly reduce hospitalizations and deaths as we battle the more transmissible Omicron variant. And he went on to describe Paxlovid as the first ever oral treatment for COVID-19 that is being added to our nation's medicine cabinet. And with that, he says, we take a significant step forward in our path out of the pandemic.
US stocks rebounded strongly for a second straight day on Wednesday as investors seek to shrug off COVID-19 Omicron fears. This comes a day after President Biden addressed the nation about the impact of the new variant. William Denslow reports from New York.
After registering 3 days of losses, the US markets have responded with back-to-back gains. At the close of trading Wednesday, the Dow Jones was up 0.75%, the S&P up 1%, and the Nasdaq up 1.2%. On Tuesday, President Biden sought to ease concerns that a rise in COVID-19 cases won't mean a return to lockdown seen in the spring of 2020. And on Wednesday, the FDA approved an antiviral drug created by Pfizer, providing another weapon in the fight against the pandemic. And in company news, Tesla closed the day up 7.5% after CEO Elon Musk announced he'd hit a target of selling 10% of his shares.
Several governments in Europe are reimposing COVID-19 restrictions as Omicron continues to spread across the continent. Spain has recorded its highest number of daily infections since the start of the pandemic. The World Health Organization warns that within weeks the new variant will dominate in more countries of the region, pushing already stretched health systems further to the brink. Benji Haya reports.
The Netherlands is already in lockdown. Germany is reinstating curbs from next week, with Chancellor Olaf Scholz declaring that coronavirus doesn't take a Christmas break. Sweden and Finland are among other nations announcing a raft of controls for the hospitality sector, such as curfews, whilst Portugal's ordered bars and nightclubs to shut. And Belgium could follow suit. These may involve the return of contact bubbles or the cancellation of large events.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, where you're invited to share your thoughts and opinions. 603-283-6160 if you would like to do that. Again, that number is 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria.
It's Bonnie.
Indian.
And our friend Nobody is not currently allowed to be on the show with us, apparently. Not allowed to have any radio or television appearances. Not allowed to have contact with you or me. However, we have been on the show repeatedly throughout the years with him, and he's said a lot of things. And Bonnie, throughout the last few weeks, you've been collecting some of his quotes. We had one recently that I really enjoyed involving Black Lives Matter, but you found one that's actually expanded from that, and I want to share it with people.
All right.
Why is it important to specifically say that Black Lives Matter? Because when they said that all men are created equal, they didn't include black men. When they said liberty and justice for all, they did not include black people. So it's reasonable for a black man to ask if you are including them when you say all lives matter. And that's a really, really good point. You know, you have to say that because they were specifically excluded from liberty and justice for all, and the phrase all men are created equal. So certainly some history there that we can't just ignore and say, well, all lives matter.
Yeah, and speaking of ignoring history, Sarah there just does not want to talk about, communist Russia, communist North Korea. And
I don't even know why she took the time to reference North Korea, because she sounded more like she was making our point.
I mean, she pointed out that her family escaped from North Korea, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she said her grandmother was from North Korea. I don't know.
Do you leave North Korea without escaping it? Do they have some sort of expatriation
Well, also,
program?
I didn't quibble with her about it.
I forgot to ask if she's vaccinated.
She'll call again.
Yeah.
But I didn't quibble with her about it. But North Korea didn't exist until after it was divided up, after the Korean conflict with Japan and the United States. So it was just Korea prior to that.
Right.
And then it was I don't know if she was saying her grandmother was from North Korea or just from Korea. Because if she's 50 years old, then her grandmother would have been born in Korea, not North Korea.
Good point.
Yeah.
There's also the reality that there are starving people in North Korea right now today.
Well, it's hard to know. That's the rest of the story.
That's what we hear from people who have fled.
Escaped.
Yeah, we couldn't. It's probably. So the thing is, in North Korea, you don't really know anything about what's going on except for what people who've escaped can tell you about it, because the North Korean government is the only creator of media in North Korea. So
and it's all propaganda.
It's all state propaganda. And so anything that you get out of North Korea, is official propaganda, so you can't believe a thing that the state says. You can believe to some extent the people who've escaped because, they all tell similar stories, and they certainly aren't lauding the state, so they're probably not state actors. In fact, some of them have been targeted after the fact by the state of North Korea for, destruction and, murder.
Well, if they were state actors, they would come out saying, in North Korea, it's not
so
really
bad.
that bad.
Yeah. And so at the same time, though, the old story there is that the people aren't starving because they do accept food donations from China and some other countries in the world. Of course, most of it goes to the upper class bureaucrats and their families, but that may be why they're not eating grass right now as they were in the 1990s. And one of the other reasons why there was you mentioned Liberty in North Korea, Bonnie, which is an interesting organization that actually helps people escape and helps the escapees if they can get a hold of them and give them a path to South Korea. But they came here actually to Keene when they were doing their Jangmadang tour and told us about this word, which in Korea means the black market. And so what ended up happening, and what they say is the reason why people aren't starving in North Korea right now is because Kim Jong-un and to some extent Kim Jong-il started to look the other way, if I'm recalling the story correctly, started to look the other way when it came to black markets. In the same way that in Venezuela, we know that the regime there is looking the other way when it comes to people using the dollar in the marketplaces in Venezuela, because they realize that their rule and their reign over these populaces are coming to an end. If people are starving, they're going to start getting desperate, and desperate people are more likely to show up and burn down, the whatever the state house is there.
Palace
yeah,
or
the
whatever.
palaces or whatever. And so you got to keep the people from total starvation and total desperation, and by looking the other way and allowing black markets to exist, essentially got the people of North Korea some food in their bellies and stopped the mass starvation from going on. So that's the difference between what happened in the 90s, when literally the communist food supply completely ran out. The government was taking all of the donated food for themselves, and the people were literally eating like grass soup and absolutely horrifying circumstances. People dying of starvation. As you mentioned, Aria, people literally selling their children for money to buy what they could possibly buy. Just an absolutely horrifying situation. So the difference between the 90s and the aughts and the last decade is that at some point, Kim Jong-il or Jong-un said, okay, let's stop arresting the black markets. Let's stop raiding the people who are actually trading food for people to eat. And that's what has changed.
Well, we also have Richard calling from New Mexico. Richard, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yes, I'd like to call in about the COVID virus and people that haven't got their COVID virus shots yet.
Have you gotten your vaccine, Richard?
Yes.
I can ask you, has Sarah gotten her vaccine?
Yes, I was with her when she got her vaccine.
Just like a good little communist.
Yeah, I even volunteered to give her the shot.
Are you a communist, Richard?
No, I'm a Vietnam veteran, and also I'm a former special agent with the United States Department of Justice.
So you actually fought the communists in Vietnam?
Yes.
That's got to be an awkward living situation.
Well, we've adapted.
All right.
So you mentioned you had problems with the vaccine, right?
Well, what I did, people are jumping on people that haven't got vaccinated at all, and with my medical background as a Navy corpsman for 4 years, I wouldn't have got my vaccine either, because I'm pretty educated and smart enough to stay away from people and populated places where I might have picked up the vaccine. But
well, I've never been a Navy corpsman, but what part of being a Navy corpsman makes you medically? I think you were medically enough of a medical expert.
Richard, you got to back off your phone too. It's just hard to understand you. You got to back off like 2 inches, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's better.
Sounds so much better.
I went through Navy medical school. After 4 years of the Navy, I got certified as a physician's assistant by the Navy Bureau of Hospitals and Surgery.
So are you saying you're skeptical of the vaccine, but yet you went ahead and took it?
Well, I felt like I was educated and trained enough in the medical field that I didn't need it. However, in June 13th of this year, the state of New Mexico came up with a program where for 4 days they were giving people $100 to get vaccinated.
Man.
So
you really needed the $100 that bad?
No, but I walk around with a few $100 in my pocket all the time, and I pick up change off the sidewalks.
Yeah, I wouldn't have sold my bodily autonomy for $100.
DNA sequencing.
Thank you so much for the call tonight, Richard. I mean, that's sad to hear, man. I wish you hadn't sold out your bodily autonomy for $100. But, that was the whole point of the incentive program. Offer people something. Get them in. Get them vaccinated. Give them that free Burger King coupon or whatever.
Bag of weed.
603-283-6160. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
Email is easy, instant, and free, and that can be real embarrassing. Email lacks the eye contact and body language you get in face-to-face conversation, or the tone of voice and other nuance you hear in a telephone conversation. Email is just words, often few words. We're all smothering in spam, so we often reply in terse fashion that's easy to misunderstand. And email doesn't cost you a postage stamp, and it lacks the deliberation time it'd take to walk to the snail mail box. So it's easy to succumb to the "oh yeah" stimulus response trap. When in doubt, don't snap back at snippy messages you get. You may have mistaken the sender's intent. And unless you're sending AOL to AOL, there's no unsend. For more tips on critical communication skills for the way things are now, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Free Talk Live.
Some old codger Republican is screaming at his radio. This is not a democracy.
Yeah, it's
we live in a democracy. We live in a republic. And to that guy, just take a deep breath. Tell me the operative difference between a democracy and a republic.
Well, we elect representatives in a republic.
That's true.
And you respect rights.
A direct democracy certainly is a democracy where everybody gets a vote. But tell me about this respecting rights thing. What other republic, in fact, respects rights?
The People's Republic of China.
Right. So this idea that we live in a republic is really just fallacious. It's just some term that someone's come up with. In Greek, democracy means of the people. Republic in Latin means for the people or something.
Don't forget the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. That's a republic.
Right. There's another republic. I mean, republics are all over. Take a pill. Republic means nothing.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, where you're invited to take control of the airwaves, talk talk about whatever is important to you, whether or not you think communism is somehow better than capitalism, even though, we were talking with a caller earlier who certainly advocated this and pointed out that, the doctors there in Cuba, they don't get paid, they work, they get fed, they just get housing, and yeah, that's a literal description of slavery you got there, and I don't know how anyone could say that model is superior to a system that doesn't require actual literal slavery. 603.
It's pure fantasy, and it ignores human nature.
It does. No one wants to be a slave. 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in on that or anything else that's important to you.
And nobody wants to work as hard as a doctor works just for the same exact living situation and wealth as somebody who, is a store clerk.
That's a really good point. That's the issue with these communist communes that have always popped up throughout the United States. You can have a communist society here in the United States if you want.
Just join a commune.
Yeah, come together with a bunch of other communists, buy some land. Sure, you do have to buy that initial piece of land. Sorry, we live in a world where the federal government has claimed more than 50% of the land west of the Mississippi River. I think it's actually higher than that. But something...
Yeah, 2/3 or something.
Yeah, a huge portion of the land claimed by the federal government. And, that caused the value of land to actually increase and become worth something. You can't just go out there and build a little house on the prairie like you could prior to the federal government buying or claiming ownership of everything. So buy your piece of land, have your commune. You're never going to get engineers to come there. You're never going to get doctors, physicists, or any biochemists or vaccine manufacturers to come there because they're not going to be motivated for their expertise. If you get an engineer there or a physicist there, it's because they've had a mental breakdown and they don't want to participate in their career anymore. This sort of thing happens, right? They're like, all right, I'm done. I'm buying a bus and selling all my possessions and I'm just going to go now because That's the physicist you're going to get in your Chinese commune. So, or in your communist commune.
Well, right. And there's been so many experiments in this over decades and decades and, last 100+ years or whatever. And they've all been abject failures.
Yeah.
And
they'll continue to be.
And they'll continue to be because, as I said, it's against human nature. Now, as much as Sarah and her communist ilk want to believe that if we just tell people we're just doing this for the community. You've got to be community-minded, which means you need to work as hard as everybody else. But, if you can't work, well, that's okay. We'll take care of you because from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. So, therefore, there's all now of a sudden people who all of a sudden can't work, who could work before because... Well, why should they work as hard as other people when if they work less hard, they still get food in theory, right? Like that's the idea. You get taken care of. Oh, my back hurts. Oh, I can't work today. I'm just going to have to sit this out and then just keep sitting it out and keep sitting it out. And then watch as the other people who are working, as much as they're community minded, they're going to get sick and tired because they know that you're 25 years old and you are not crippled and you can absolutely get out there into the field and work. So they're going to say, you know what? I'm not going to do as much work today because they're not working over there. And then before you know it, hardly anybody's working. And where's all the productivity coming from then?
And there are always still fat cats. Like the thing that she has an issue with, the thing she has an issue with capitalism is, there are these billionaires and we're all, us in New Mexico, we're starving. But the actual issue that is actually happening in Cuba. There's, rich people.
I want to get to, but I want to point out, you're absolutely right. And we saw this happen during the pandemic when people quit their jobs or came up with all kinds of nonsense to not have to work because the government was giving them an extra $600 per week.
They're still not working somehow. I don't know how.
To be unemployed, in addition to the standard unemployment benefit. The government was paying them to stay at home. And you better believe me, as someone who worked through the pandemic, I'm not a hateful person, but I can totally see how anyone who had to work through, or who had the drive to work through the pandemic, it absolutely hates those people who sat at home doing nothing, reaping all of those benefits. And look at the consequences. The economy's completely wrecked. There's animal food shortages. There's clothing shortages. There's food shortages. There are cargo ships lined up out in the ocean that can't be delivered and truckers who can't bring them in. All of that as a result of people choosing to sit at home and do nothing because they were going to get better rewards than people who actually worked.
And that was just a government wealth redistribution program. That wasn't even full-on communist. That's just a fraction of communism.
We have CW who is listening on K-Talks out in California. CW, you're on Free Talk Live.
Oh, my ear hurts. I've been holding the phone for so long, but I understand.
Yeah, sorry about that, man. Tons of callers all at once.
No, it's all good. I wanted to hear those dummies call first because I just want to say I've been working through this whole pandemic. I haven't feared it once. I don't buy into the fear-mongering, which is good. I'm not going to get a vaccine. I'm never going to get this dumb vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have to get stitches because I was at work and I cut my arm. So they did give me a tetanus shot, which, tetanus shots have been around for a long time. So I wasn't opposed to getting a tetanus shot.
Right.
And they didn't try to push a dumb COVID vaccine on me. You know what? Those doctors, the doctor there and the nurses, I don't think they gave two S's about it. I told them I wasn't vaccinated. They didn't care one bit.
Good.
So that's why I love where I live in Mojave County, Arizona, just across the river from California. And Sarah, I was talking about it last night, and it just proves communists are dummies, lame brains, idiots. How can they think the way they think? What chemical compounds are they getting from their? What are they eating?
I think there's two main categories from my observation. There's the people who are like Sarah that just want to live for free. They're lazy.
I mean,
they don't want to work.
She has not worked since she was 18, and she'll tell you that. So yeah.
They're lazy. They don't want to work, and those are the ones that are not as bright. Then there are the control freaks, and those are the ones who are actually pretty intelligent, right? Those are the ones who are not going to call Free Talk Live because they don't feel like they have to defend communism. They're just going to go and do what they can to implement it. And that's because they are controllers. They want to tell people what to do. They want to be the elites that Bonnie was talking about. They want to be the fat cats at the top of the communist organizational system.
I think there's probably a third type as well. There's the communists that is just purely motivated by emotional reasons. And you gotta admit, when communism gives you its pitch, it sounds like it could be fantastic. Everyone's going to be taken care of. Everyone's going to have food. Everyone's going to have health care. If you value these things, communism pitching it that way, it sounds appealing. If your primary motivation isn't liberty or something like that, you just want to make sure everyone in the world is fed, and communism comes along and says, we're going to make sure everyone in the world is fed, everyone's taken care of, everyone is equal. Those things sound great. It's got a great sales pitch behind it, and a lot of people just fall for that sales pitch and don't ever actually think about what consequences it could actually have. I think Sarah probably falls into that group. She doesn't realize that, everyone gets free health care and the doctors get a free house. It doesn't click for her that what she's advocating is actual slavery
and stealing and violence
in order to achieve that goal of everyone having free health care.
Well, can I make one more point really quick? All right, so what's the difference between being a big fat cat communist that can tell whatever, versus a capitalist that employs people, allows people to grow in ranks and make more money with the more knowledge they have, so they can make more money, while the person that runs the business, that's the big capitalist evil man, makes even more money because he has skilled workers that he's paying a good wage that actually want to be there and work.
Well, the difference is the control freaks really just are seeking power.
Yeah, I was going to say voluntary relationships is the difference.
Right. The capitalists that you're describing would be someone who is employing people on a voluntary basis, people who want to come to work, people who want to better themselves, people who want to create whatever product or service that he has put forth and created whatever factories or to do. And all those people are interacting on a consensual basis.
They could also be motivated by the idea that one day they could raise up as high as the person at the top, not necessarily in the business, but go create their own business if there's an actual free market. In communism, you don't have any kind of incentive like that to work that well.
No, they assign you to your job.
The issue for the communists is that they don't believe that everyone wants to work. They believe that the entire capitalist system is set up to starve them to death if they don't want to work. They blame capitalism for what is inherently a problem with existing in our universe. You have to eat. if you want to survive. You have to go out there and hunt things or forage for things or something.
And before food banks, you actually had to go and do those things. Now you can just show up and knock on a food bank's door and they'll hand you the food.
And it's because some people were rewarded for being industrious enough to go out there and collect extra that they had more than enough and were willing to give it away to people.
Right, that's true.
But it's not capitalism that's forcing people to work. That's the nature of the universe we live in. If you don't work, you starve to death, and it's only the generosity of other human beings that can ward that off. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com. I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. The US Food and Drug Administration has approved the first antiviral pill for the treatment of at-risk COVID-19 patients. Manufactured by Pfizer, President Biden said the US hopes to make 250,000 initial courses of the drug available to American patients as early as next month. The FDA urged Americans not to view the therapeutic as an alternative to vaccines, but the White House is calling the drug a turning point in the battle with COVID-19. Our US correspondent Simon Marks has more.
Well, that's certainly how President Biden is characterizing this in a statement shortly after the FDA decision was published. He said that this is a promising new treatment option that will significantly reduce hospitalizations and deaths as we battle the more transmissible Omicron variant. And he went on to describe Paxlovid as the first ever oral treatment for COVID-19 that is being added to our nation's medicine cabinet. And with that, he says, we take a significant step forward in our path out of the pandemic.
US stocks rebounded strongly for a second straight day on Wednesday as investors seek to shrug off COVID-19 Omicron fears. This comes a day after President Biden addressed the nation about the impact of the new variant. William Denslow reports from New York.
After registering 3 days of losses, the US markets have responded with back-to-back gains. At the close of trading Wednesday, the Dow Jones was up 0.75%, the S&P up 1% and the Nasdaq up 1.2%. On Tuesday, President Biden sought to ease concerns that a rise in COVID-19 cases won't mean a return to lockdown seen in the spring of 2020. And on Wednesday, the FDA approved an antiviral drug created by Pfizer, providing another weapon in the fight against the pandemic. And in company news, Tesla closed the day up 7.5% after CEO Elon Musk announced he'd hit a target of selling 10% of his shares.
Several governments in Europe are reimposing COVID-19 restrictions as Omicron continues to spread across the continent. Spain has recorded its highest number of daily infections since the start of the pandemic. The World Health Organization warns that within weeks the new variant will dominate in more countries of the region, pushing already stretched health systems further to the brink. Benji Hire reports.
The Netherlands is already in lockdown. Germany is reinstating curbs from next week, with Chancellor Olaf Scholz declaring that coronavirus doesn't take a Christmas break. Sweden and Finland are among other nations announcing a raft of controls for the hospitality sector, such as curfews, whilst Portugal's ordered bars and nightclubs to shut. And Belgium could follow suit. These may involve the return of contact bubbles or the cancellation of large events.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. What's the impact of the Omicron variant on retail businesses this Christmas? Well, one measure of that was published in the UK on Wednesday. It shows footfall, literally pedestrian traffic, in London's West End declined on Tuesday by more than 25% compared to the same day in 2019 before the pandemic began. But the figures were 10% higher than the Tuesday of the previous week, indicating some degree of Christmas shopping activity in London's Regent and Oxford streets. The data was gathered by the New West End Company, which represents many retailers in London's busiest shopping district. Jace Tyrrell is its CEO.
Of course, this is meant to be the West End moment every year with customers coming back. And I think we're learning to live with COVID as businesses. And of course, we've got to understand there's still going to be challenges around that. But I think we were hoping, given November was so strong, actually, a lot of Londoners, a lot of UK customers were coming back to the West End. The theatres were going again. We really thought it was going to be a very positive end to the year as we go into 22. But of course, that isn't the case. And unfortunately, I think we're going to see some closures as we go into the new year.
He argues more support is needed to help businesses get through the Omicron wave. And he says the stop-start nature of restrictions on business activity is causing confusion among consumers who, in many cases, are taking their shopping online. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main headlines again. The US Food and Drug Administration has approved the first antiviral pill for the treatment of at-risk COVID-19 patients. US stocks rebounded strongly for a second straight day on Wednesday as investors seek to shrug off COVID-19 Omicron fears. And several governments in Europe are reimposing COVID-19 restrictions as Omicron continues to spread across the continent. And that is the latest from Feature Story News. I'm Jagruti Dave in Washington.
According to a report released this week, people who paint themselves silver and pretend to be statues earn, on average, $10 million per year. The Onion sat down with economist Mark Cosgrave to learn more about the money-making potential of this highly lucrative employment path.
There's no more profitable career at the moment. If you compare these positions to other high-paying jobs, say physicians or mechanical engineers, you'll find that those individuals who have outfitted themselves with silver-painted boxes and can move their limbs stiffly as if they were a robot are making literally hundreds of times as much. At this point, I would say that the only job that offers anywhere near that kind of earning potential is dressing up like Batman and allowing people to pose for photos with you. And those guys who play paint buckets like drums have historically done well for themselves. But honestly, the recession hit these professions pretty hard, and a lot of them are only making something like $800,000 a year at this point. It's barely even worth their time.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live with Aria, Bonnie, and Ian, and you're invited to weigh in. Share your thoughts and opinions. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. That's 603-283-6160. And we were talking about the Great Reset, but that got us into a related conversation about communism, and since then we've pretty much just been talking about that because there's a lot to say about communism. A lot of people my age and younger identify as communists. And actually, now that I think about it, I think it's funny that I said they identify as communists because by and large, they don't even know what a communist is or what a communist believes, had never read the Communist Manifesto. I've read it, but I was at like 15 years old at the time. It's on my agenda to reread again at some point.
Why? I've never read the thing. I don't see any reason why I should.
It's curious from a historical perspective.
Okay.
But I mean, Engels is a lot better to read than Karl Marx, in my opinion. And I've
what
read
did that person write?
Basically the same sort of thing. Only instead of writing the Communist Manifesto, as I understand it, Engels just wrote a bunch of articles and stuff like that. That essentially advocated the same ideas. He was also the one who was paying Marx's rent, because Marx was a useless philosopher who had no useful skills. Exactly the sort of person you would expect to come up with this idea of, you know what? I don't have any useful skills, but someone should feed me anyway.
Yeah.
But let's go to the phones. We have Bad Slave calling from New Hampshire. You're on Free Talk Live, Bad Slave.
Well, hello there, folks. Getting back to the stakeholder capitalism, is that the phrase that you all used?
That's the buzzword from World Economic Forum that we were trying to discuss earlier. We still haven't really gotten into what Klaus Schwab's supposed vision for this thing he's been pushing for the last 5 decades is.
Well, truly capitalism reflects, that everybody has the opportunity for, to apply your meritocracy and individually, or get together with your friends and make a company and produce something and improve your lot.
Well, the free market is definitely based on merit, right? No one's going to pay you more money to do something if you're not any better at it than the next person.
So I would want to say that anybody that's going to segment off capitalism into its stakeholder nature is likely trying to make a collective of the rest of us, and the fact is that I think that as long as stakeholders reflects everybody that is emancipated and on their way, that they're a member of that.
I have no idea what you just said.
I don't either. Thank you for the Bad Slave. Thank you for the call tonight, Bad Slave. It's unclear at this point what stakeholder capitalism even is, so it's difficult for us to weigh in on it.
Well, it seems like a buzzword. It seems like a jumbled mess of...
But I mean, the description that he gave is basically just what we already have now.
No, he hasn't gotten into what his definition of this thing is, but he does talk in his article here that was written in 2019. It's published on a website called project-syndicate.org, written by Klaus Schwab, the creator of the World Economic Forum. And he an hour ago when we were talking about this, he was talking about how companies are signing on to this stakeholder capitalism. And just the fact that big mega corporations are signing on to it is, one reason to pause and think, oh, well, whatever this is, it's probably not free market.
Yeah, it's probably not capitalism.
It's probably, well, I don't even know. The problem with capitalism...
It's more corporatism.
Yeah, of course it is. But it's going to be gussied up with, ooh, we care.
Well, Ian,
caring corporatism.
If corporations are doing it, it's not capitalism. Corporations involve...
This gets into some weird areas where capitalism has a lot of baggage attached to it, and I think it's one of the reasons that Ian doesn't describe himself as a capitalist advocate. Rather, he uses free market advocate.
I'm a free market advocate, yeah. I think that, look, if you just pull up the definition of capitalism, and again, that's an important thing. Whenever you're talking about these things, whether it's capitalism, communism, you got to have the definition out there so you can actually agree with the definition before you can even have a discussion. Because if you're talking about capitalism, you're probably talking about pure capitalism, or an economic system or political system in which countries' trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state.
Which is why corporations are not capitalist, because they're using the state. But then there's crony
capitalism, where people use the state, as you're saying, Bonnie, in order to benefit themselves at the cost of others. Right.
Which I would argue is essentially just fascism.
Yeah, it's just not capitalism. That's just a bad word.
But to the average person, crony capitalism or fascism, however you want to describe it, is what capitalism is. The system that we have in the United States.
That's what we have today.
That's what they believe capitalism is.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't, I'm the kind of person who's like, well, if that word has been trashed, then I'm going to go ahead and abandon it. In the same way that I prefer to be called a voluntarist, I'll accept libertarian, but I think voluntarist is a better term because it's more explicit about what I actually believe.
Yeah, there was a time I was really annoyed with being called a libertarian because, for one thing, somebody we know kept saying, "You libertarians," about like everything I did. But for another reason, just because conservatives think that they're libertarians right now. And it's so annoying.
Yeah, and as far as the term capitalism is concerned, it's just too much preconceived notions, too much baggage out there, and I don't want to have to deal with it. I'd rather just say, I'm in favor of free markets, which means that I can include people who are having themselves a commune. You mentioned earlier, Arya, that people can join a commune if they want communism, or create one if you can't find one to join because they tend to fail. But there are supposedly some communes that have been around since like the 70s or whatever. There aren't that many of them, but there are some that still exist. So those people have proven that in a voluntary organization, they've gotten some sort of semblance of communism to actually work on their little farm, and they're happy about it. Great! I think those people should be happy with whatever it is that they want to try.
And free to try it.
Yeah, and a free market allows for that. I don't want to force somebody to be a capitalist. I don't want to force somebody into anything. Let's try different economic organizational models. Let's have an employee-owned business. Let's have a shareholder business. Yeah. Let's have a stakeholder. I don't care. Do what you want.
On the subject
Just don't force me into it.
Absolutely. On the subject of connotations and word baggage and all of that, I understand entirely where you're coming from. If I want to have a meaningful discussion with someone, or if I just there are times where I don't want to have to deal with all of the baggage of calling myself certain things, right? Mm-hmm. But if I can use that shocking language to my advantage and sort of exploit it, like calling myself a Satanist, anarchist tranny, or whatever, then to me, there's value in that.
Sure, I see
It may
that
not necessarily communicate to them what I actually want to say, but it gets their attention enough where sometimes
maybe they'll pay attention.
I can say it.
Yeah. Let me share, before we go on here, I know we got a couple people waiting, but I want to get this out there. This is their Davos manifesto. It's what Klaus Schwab summarizes in one sentence, because I tried to pull up the manifesto, and it's in like German or whatever, and I couldn't.
You definitely want a manifesto that sounds like it was written by a Dalek in Doctor Who.
Right, the word Davos does sound like that, doesn't it?
It does.
Anyway, so they signed this thing at the World Economic Forum, presumably a bunch of mega corporations or whatever. They say they will show zero tolerance for corruption, pay their fair share of taxes. That's right there enough for me to say this is bad.
Their fair share of taxes is $0.
No, it's whatever the government decides. That's the reality
not the
of it.
fair share.
No, I agree with you. There's no such thing as fairness when it comes to taxation, but that's what they mean when they say it. Uphold human rights throughout their global supply chains and advocate for...
Well, they're already not doing that.
Well, they're saying they're going to.
Oh.
And advocate for a competitive level playing field. And we know what that means.
You can't have a level playing field, like, forced on society and it be competitive.
That's a great point. And that's what this is. Whenever they say the term level playing field, they mean government mandates, government regulations, and restrictions in a marketplace.
Yeah, it used and exploited to prevent there being a level playing field. 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Hi, I'm Derek J. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea that one group of people can coerce everyone to comply with an edict or face increasing punishments up to and including death. Despite perhaps the most noble of intentions, the best government services are a far cry from what could be provided for by voluntary interactions. Besides, the people who call themselves the government wage wars and put peaceful people in jail for crimes involving no victims. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where you're invited to take control of the airwaves, share your thoughts and opinions, talk about whatever is important to you. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. Again, that number is 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria.
It's Bonnie.
And Ian.
And I want to say thank you to Corey, who is tonight's amplifier. This means that Corey has signed up for our new Patreon, which you can find at amps.freetalklive.com. It stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. And that's essentially what the AMPS program does. So if you like Free Talk Live, you want to help promote it, support it, all of that great stuff, the AMPS program is the best way to do that. It only takes $5 per month. That gets you in. It does have an AMP-only podcast. There's an AMP-only chat room on our Matrix server. There's even an AMP-only Facebook group. But really the reason you should join is because you like the show and you want to support it and help it reach a larger audience. All of that awesome stuff. So thank you so much, Corey, for your support of the show. Let's go to the phones. We have Rat Speed calling. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hello, everyone. Well, first of all, Bonnie, they weren't talking about gay butter. They were talking about ghee butter. See, it's lactose intolerance they were trying to protect. Anyway, I'm just kidding. So
I had no idea.
You guys missed it. I got it. It was funny.
What is ghee butter?
It's a thing in India.
Okay. Yeah, it's where they take the lactose out of the butter. Anyway, that was a bad joke. The stakeholder model of capitalism, that reminded me of a couple of things. First of all, that one scene from Network from 1976 where he's basically talking about the world is a business and all of these corporations are fighting for control over business, and so therefore the guy envisioned a future where people have a stake in the business. So basically, it's gigantic fascism put together into one monopoly. And then that made me think about Elon's comments, Elon Musk's talking about how government is essentially the world's largest monopoly that has, they're legally sanctioned to use violence, and there's no way to get out of it. And so basically, you could look at this idea about quote-unquote stakeholder capitalism, a bunch of businesses around the world having a stake in quote-unquote the government, being nothing more than one gigantic pseudo-capitalist society, but in fact it's actually either fascism or communism, because there's no way to get out of communism either. No one actually owns anything. Everyone's part of the state.
It's not clear in this nothing's clear in this article about stakeholder capitalism. Like, the one thing that it seems like the obvious question is, who are the stakeholders? Who are we talking about here? And are we talking about...
What I saw from Investopedia was that the stakeholders is pretty much everyone, including customers.
But that's ridiculous. Well, I have no stake in private corporations unless I own a piece of them.
Well, if you're a customer, presumably you do in a weird sort of way. I'm trying to think about how to phrase it. Because you like that company and you want to give them money because you appreciate their products or you want their products or whatever. That gives you
an interest in society having toilet seats or whatever the company's making.
Now, here's a thought, is that when ICANN made their stakeholder model, each country, each domain, in other words, is, quote-unquote, a stakeholder in the whole propagation of DNS. In other words, the way that ICANN reformed itself, because, it used to be one
the Internet Names
company.
Registry is what the DNS.
Okay. And so they have
we are doing a lot of speculation here about something that none of us know anything about, which is stakeholder capitalism. So let's keep that in mind. We can come up with all kinds of analogies to describe it, but we have to remember, we don't actually know what we're trying to describe.
No, and I've got 3 more paragraphs I can read to you here, and then you can tell me if it makes anything clearer to you. Do you want to stay on the line while I do that?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah,
so let's just see if this makes anything clearer, because now we're getting into the quote-unquote meat here. So Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum has already talked about how companies need to be more concerned with, paying their fair share of taxes, zero tolerance for corruption, upholding human rights in their supply chains. But he goes on. He says, but to uphold the principles of stakeholder capitalism. All right, so this is it. This is the principles of it, right? Companies will need new metrics. For starters, a new measure of, quote, shared value creation, unquote, should include, quote, environmental, social, and governance, ESG goals as a complement to standard financial metrics. Fortunately, an initiative to develop a new standard along these lines is already underway, with support from the Big Four accounting firms and led by the chairman of the International Business Council, Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan. Boy, nothing inspires confidence in me like saying Bank of America is going to be heading up whatever the hell it is.
Morality.
Whatever this environmental, social, and governance measure of shared value creation. This is something he thinks is important to this stakeholder capitalism. So that's paragraph 1. Next one.
Oh, good Lord.
The second metric that needs to be adjusted is executive remuneration. That means payment.
Okay, thank you.
Since the 1970s, executive pay has skyrocketed, mostly to align, he puts that in quotes, management decision-making with shareholder interests. In the new stakeholder paradigm, salaries should instead align with the new measure of long-term shared value creation. Is this clear to anyone yet? Okay, final paragraph.
It's increasingly unclear.
Finally, he says, large companies should understand that they themselves are major stakeholders in our common future. That's the first time he said anything about who the stakeholders are. Clearly, all companies should still seek to harness their core competencies and maintain an entrepreneurial mindset, but they should also work with other stakeholders, the government, to improve the state of the world in which they're operating. In fact, this latter proviso should be their ultimate purpose.
So do you want to make an analogy to describe stakeholder capitalism now, Ratspeed?
Right now, that math animated GIF meme is going through my mind like I'm trying to calculate all of this. It makes no sense. However, but I looked up the definition of shared value creation, and it's a business term. Apparently, it's creating shared value is the practice of creating economic value in a way that also creates value for society by addressing its needs and challenges. It's a business term.
But again, it's one of those things like with communism. It's like, who decides? Who decides what the value for society is? Apparently, Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan will.
Well, if there's someone I trust to decide what is good for society, I'm with you. It's definitely Bank of America.
It sounds like what this is doing is they're trying to look at creating the future of a one-world government to be in the model of a corporate stakeholder business. In other words, one massive corporation. That's what it sounds like to me.
It sounds to me like you basically just did the same thing that the other guy here, just throw out a bunch of buzzwords. I mean, we still don't know what they mean by stakeholder capitalism.
No, and it's not
clear. One world government. Sounds like from what Ratspeed got out of it, it's making me think just one world government created by a bunch of companies.
Yeah, like we're the peasants, they buy and sell and trade everything that the corporations tell them they want, and the corporations are part of a larger national economic system where all of these nations are stakeholders in this massive corporation.
But that's what we have now.
That's what I'm saying. It's hard to really discern why this is in any way different than the current corporate, mega structure that we have here today.
But they're describing it as different, and not just different, a massive leaps forward. This is what humanity needs in order to survive in the long term. 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in on this. I'm not even sure what we're talking about. What is this idea they have?
It's the Great Reset. Isn't it great?
If you want to bring more liberty into your community, there's something you should see. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, break through. It's true. It's truly something new. If you'd like to see real prosperity, start your own currency, boost the economy. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, its impact's hard to overstate, results you can appreciate. If you're tired of relying on the state, want to make your own community great, homelessness and hunger to eliminate, let the wealth accumulate. Don't wait for the growth rate to accelerate. Go to intercoin.org and get the coins for yourself.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. The US Food and Drug Administration has approved the first antiviral pill for the treatment of at-risk COVID-19 patients. Manufactured by Pfizer, President Biden said the US hopes to make 250,000 initial courses of the drug available to American patients as early as next month. The FDA urged Americans not to view the therapeutic as an alternative to vaccines, but the White House is calling the drug a turning point in the battle with COVID-19. Our US correspondent Simon Marks has more.
Well, that's certainly how President Biden is characterizing this. In a statement shortly after the FDA decision was published, he said that this is a promising new treatment option that will significantly reduce hospitalizations and deaths as we battle the more transmissible Omicron variant. And he went on to describe Paxlovid as the first ever oral treatment for COVID-19 that is being added to our nation's medicine cabinet. And with that, he says, we take a significant step forward in our path out of the pandemic.
US stocks rebounded strongly for a second straight day on Wednesday as investors seek to shrug off COVID-19 Omicron fears. This comes a day after President Biden addressed the nation about the impact of the new variant. William Denslow reports from New York.
After registering 3 days of losses, the US markets have responded with back-to-back gains. At the close of trading Wednesday, the Dow Jones was up 0.75%, the S&P up 1% and the Nasdaq up 1.2%. On Tuesday, President Biden sought to ease concerns that a rise in COVID-19 cases won't mean a return to lockdown seen in the spring of 2020. And on Wednesday, the FDA approved an antiviral drug created by Pfizer, providing another weapon in the fight against the pandemic. And in company news, Tesla closed the day up 7.5% after CEO Elon Musk announced he'd hit a target of selling 10% of his shares.
Several governments in Europe are reimposing COVID-19 restrictions as Omicron continues to spread across the continent. Spain has recorded its highest number of daily infections since the start of the pandemic. The World Health Organization warns that within weeks the new variant will dominate in more countries of the region, pushing already stretched health systems further to the brink. Benji Haya reports.
The Netherlands is already in lockdown. Germany is reinstating curbs from next week, with Chancellor Olaf Scholz declaring that coronavirus doesn't take a Christmas break. Sweden and Finland are among other nations announcing a raft of controls for the hospitality sector, such as curfews, whilst Portugal's ordered bars and nightclubs to shut. And Belgium could follow suit. These may involve the return of contact bubbles or the cancellation of large events.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live with Aria, Bonnie, and Ian, and you can weigh in 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. Again, that number is 603-283-6160. And we've been talking a lot tonight about how individuals generally know what is better for themselves than any sort of governmental organization or any sort of corporation or honestly any sort of aid agency. The individuals out there in Bomet and Kilifi counties in Kenya for whom we're raising money with Give Directly, they know what's best for themselves far more than this human rights organization out of Europe or this charity in the United States knows what is best for them. Sure, it's good for them to get that package of food or whatever, but they know what they actually need because they're there on the ground living their lives. And that's what Give Directly allows you to do. Give money directly to these families who need help because they've been dealing with droughts and famine and all manner of poverty, war, all of that crap for who knows how long. And this is happening in Kenya right now, and you can help by going to give.freetalklive.com, where we're matching your donations up to $30,000. So if you're feeling generous this holiday season and you agree with this idea that the individual is best suited to meet their own wants and needs when they have the resources to do that than distant aid organizations, then check out Give Directly. Again, all of that's happening at give.freetalklive.com. You can help people this holiday season.
Yeah, I really like everything I've heard about what they do.
I do too, because I mean it's one of the most libertarian ideas ever for a charity. It's like that's what we're all about, is giving someone help so that they can solve their own problems rather than trying to give them a solution that will be a one-size-fits-all for everyone, which is what governments attempt to do. And that's one of the reasons we argue government can't work. And why socialism and communism can't work, because these deciders, these ones making the decisions on how many boots they need to manufacture or how many chickens they need to kill, they don't have that information they need to make those decisions.
Nope.
So we have David calling from New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, I have all that here in New Mexico, the drought, the famine, the pestilence. Just send your money here, save time. And so
you have a job?
I doubt that.
You have a job, David? Then I don't understand what your problem is.
Bonnie, it was supposed to be funny.
Dude, that was the lamest joke.
Just sounded
I've
pathetic.
Heard. It did.
And he did say that before.
You know what, Joe? I didn't hear you, Bonnie.
He did say that before. He said, I had to walk 5 miles one time to get water. Send me the money.
by choice.
Hey, you know what? I got a better idea. I wrote something about you guys today. Let me read it to you.
Okay.
I can't wait.
Where did this get published somewhere? Or is this like in your diary?
So it's just in my diary. I take the little key and I unlock it, and then I open it up. Let me scroll down to see if I can
then you're
find
doing
it.
better than the families in Kilifi and Bomet counties in Kenya. So I would suggest people just stick with give.freetalklive.com.
Here's what I wrote. This is just in note form.
Hold on, David. I'm so tempted to just put you on hold and drop the call before you can do it. I'm not going to do it. I just want you to know I am showing that restraint.
Thank you. Thanks for playing into what you'll hear here.
All right, let's hear it.
Free Talk Live. Interruption with talkover. Hijack the call by making a separate point before the caller has even finished 2 sentences of their point. Then mute them when they don't submit to your hijack of the call. Then you bring them back and immediately hang up on them the second you don't like what they're saying. And I inserted, this is FCC legal, candy ass bitches. Then you talk S about them and criticize, bring the screen up, criticize what you thought they were saying when what you think they were saying is not at all what they were trying to say.
Boy, you've never had a chance to express yourself on this show. That's for sure.
I'm not talking about, I didn't say that, nowhere in the notes that I read does it say I never got a chance to express myself on this show. I'm just reading to you what I wrote down, observations that I made when I analyzed your communication style.
Yeah, all I hear is complaining about getting interrupted and so on and so forth. That's because you're not very smart,
Ian. That's because you're not smart enough. And Bonnie is just a mouth with no brain behind it. But
it's just a call-in for David to. We all have to be silent for David to just give a monologue every time he calls. It's not a two-way conversation.
Right, and it's not like David can call every single night of this show. How many calls do you think you've made to Free Talk Live over the last, I don't know, what's it been?
Every single night.
7 years?
How many calls on a weeknight have I made in the last, say, 3 or 4 months?
I have no idea, but it's a lot.
You're welcome, listeners of Free Talk Live.
Thanks for proving your ignorance, Ian. Thanks for proving your ignorance. You have no idea about
I don't have a journal where I'm taking
right about
notes.
David, I have a quick question.
You're actually proving. Why should I yield to your question? You don't yield to other people's questions.
Because my question is related to your complaint.
And it's not. I don't even want to enter.
Okay, David, you're on hold now. When I screened your call tonight, you said one word. I recognize your voice immediately. I mean, we have this down to a science because, as we pointed out, you do call all the time. You just said a single word. That word wasn't complaints. It was communism. You said you wanted to talk about communism.
I think David needs to go on a date with Sarah. I mean, if he wants to talk communism, who better to just go have some dinner, buy her dinner because she can't afford it, and take her out. You guys live in the same area.
They do. And this is the issue that we have with your calls, David, is that you want to, as Bonnie said, you just want to have a monologue about whatever you want to say, and you don't want to actually have a discussion. This is why you called and said your conversation topic was communism and not complaints.
And then started complaining.
Yeah, and then just immediately started complaining. You can say we're the problem here. You can believe that all you want, but I'm just saying communication is supposed to be two-way, and you
most radio stations, and David's actually called about this in the past, have banned him from calling their stations. So we're literally the only show that actually lets him call in, and he still complains.
So, David, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's actually not even true. And actually,
really?
I'd like your listeners to note that the script that I read to you, you actually just followed it exactly.
What stations are you allowed to call in Albuquerque?
There you go. In Albuquerque, I was just on Kiva before I called you, the station that carries your program.
I thought Eddie banned you from calling. Didn't you complain about Eddie before, the program director and owner of Kiva?
How many years ago was that?
I don't know. I'm glad to hear you patched it up. So you patched it up with Eddie? Good for you.
Yeah, and you. But yeah. So anyway, there's no problem there at the moment. If Eddie gets upset with me again, then maybe he will ban me, and then maybe he won't, and then he'll let me back on again.
How many stations have you been banned from though in the last 10 years?
Well, from the you guys are facing some charges, right? Remember those charges that KUNM with their private police force brought against me?
They had you arrested.
Well, actually, they didn't have me arrested. Actually, they wrote me a summons. But remember, I defeated them. because what they were doing was illegal.
Yeah.
And so I let them play it out in court, knowing that they would lose the entire time, and they played it out and spent tens of thousands of dollars of your tax money, Americans, especially those in New Mexico, and they lost, as I knew that they would.
And you called in and told us all about it.
Yes, but they did in fact ban you from calling them.
Yeah. So anyway, you've succeeded in making my point. When
Aren't
I read
you banned from KKOB as well?
No, not all of it. About half of it.
Okay,
not the
so
other
a bunch of the shows.
That's funny. That's a good story. That's a good story right there. The program director.
Wow, that's a great call, David. Thank you so much for the call tonight. I mean, we're never going to get to communism at this rate. And look, if you want to complain about Free Talk Live, clearly we'll give you almost an entire segment in which to do it. Just let us know that's what you want to do when you call the show, and don't just like outright lie to us and say you want to talk about communism.
Well, he could
read his little poem about Free Talk Live.
But yeah, he planned that. I mean,
yeah,
he wrote this out in advance.
It sounded kind of like a poem, but no, I don't think it was.
Poems don't have to rhyme.
True.
He wrote a little poem in his diary about how mad he was.
But if it doesn't rhyme, it's really, I don't know. It's not that poetic.
Well, he also showed his joke telling skills at the beginning of the segment. So
he often does that. He like leads with a joke and it falls flat, and then everybody's just like, "It's on your mind tonight." So at least he wasn't ranting about the gay, Nazi, lesbian Jews or whatever, the ones who banned him from that radio station in the first place. That 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in. Preferably not just to complain about us, but, you know, that's what we do here. We let you share your thoughts and opinions. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Should you be able to earn an honest living free from senseless government interference? The Institute for Justice thinks so. That's why we've spent years defending hard-working men and women from pointless government regulations. Nationwide, IJ has created opportunity by reducing government power. But there is still more work to be done. Visit our website today at ij.org. Let IJ take care of the government so you can take care of your business.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where we're giving away a BitBox here on New Year's Eve. And if you don't know what that is a hardware wallet for holding cryptocurrency. Unlike other wallets, though, the BitBox is 100% open source, which helps it to avoid some of the problems that other hardware wallets have. And if you want a chance to win one, all you have to do is join the AMPS program at amps.freetalklive.com. That's amps.freetalklive.com. And on New Year's Eve, on an episode of Freer Talk Live, that's the after show. It'll be beginning around 10:30 p.m. We're going to select one of our amplifiers at random and hook them up with one of these BitBoxes. So if you want to get a chance to win one of these, that's amps.freetalklive.com. Really, the reason you should join is because you want, the chance of winning one isn't as high as it was last time. Last time it was almost a little over 5%, I think. You've got more competition on this one, so don't sign up for the AMPS program at the hopes of winning this thing or whatever. Sign up because you like the show and you want to support it, and maybe, just maybe, get a nice little bonus. That's amps.freetalklive.com. We've been talking about the Great Reset here, and there was so much to say about it and communism, and we tried to get into what they're even describing as stakeholder capitalism, and it's just a word salad that didn't make anything even any clearer. And I'm always concerned when the World Economic Forum or whatever organization comes up and says, hey, we have a plan to redesign everything to make everything better. But when they can't even describe their plan, it makes me a little bit more nervous.
Yeah, and the people who are involved in the plan are companies like Walmart and Bank of America.
Also true, yes.
Yeah.
Bank of America, probably one of the most evil institutions in the United States.
Yeah, they're definitely a massive institution that has, I don't know, a couple $1 trillion worth of assets or something ridiculous like that under their control, and we're supposed to believe that these people are looking out for our best interests? I don't buy it.
And almost all of that money stolen from the American people via inflation and that sort of thing, where they just create money out of thin air because they're Bank of America and they're allowed to do that.
Well, if you want to, we can go back to the story we started with, which was from news.bitcoin.com, because we got into Klaus Schwab's opinion, what this whole, what was it called? Stakeholder capitalism, his buzzwords. And he didn't really make anything clear for us after we
I think we
read.
should, because at least Bitcoin.com will make sense.
Yes. So there's apparently even a GreatReset.com website now that claims that the lockdowns helped reduce global emissions. Right now, says, quote, right now, this is from the website, we have a small window of opportunity to reset and shape the future we want, the website explains.
Even if they helped reduce global emissions, I feel like there's a lot more trash on the ground.
Yeah, have you seen all the masks everywhere?
Yeah, it's disgusting.
It is so gross.
I feel like they probably had to produce more masks and gloves. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely.
So they just produce more plastic crap.
It's disturbing to. I'm really glad that I taught my dog leave it as early as I did, because when I walk her through the town of Keene, I'm constantly leave it, because there's masks everywhere.
In October of 2020, the IMF, International Monetary Fund, that's a trustworthy group.
Oh, yeah, that's Bank of America and all sorts of other
the worst
international
of the worst
banks.
Yeah. Managing Director in Washington, D.C., Kristalina Georgieva, called for a new Bretton Woods moment. You know what Bretton Woods is, right?
It was the gold standard agreement that collapsed in 1973. No, it wasn't. It was what replaced the use of the gold standard.
Yeah, they wanted to destroy the gold standard, right? And they met in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, I believe, is where that took place. It's like a super resort kind of location.
Well,
for
that's
wealthy
worked
people.
out so well for the value of the dollar.
Well, the solution they had also fell apart in the mid-'80s, didn't it? Didn't the Bretton Woods Agreement itself fall apart?
I don't know a whole lot about it, but I know it was a bunch of bankers meeting in, in a big hotel.
Just
in
like
New
they did
Hampshire.
when they wrote the Federal Reserve Act in the first place.
But they want a new one now. So she says, once again, we've faced two massive tasks: to fight the crisis today and to build a better tomorrow. People who do not, according to Bitcoin.com, trust the world governments and the global elite believe the Great Reset agenda is meant to reboot the economy in a forceful and immoral fashion. The anti-Great Reset crowd believes the initiative has been planned by the elite for years, and COVID-19 and the following lockdowns were some of the tipping points to get it started. Theorists further believe the so-called climate crisis and COVID-19 will give the elite the opportunity to deploy extreme lockdown policies, destroy the economy, and remove the idea of property ownership, alongside enforced surveillance, capitalism, and forced vaccinations. And we're seeing most of these things happen already.
Those aren't conspiracies.
Right. I mean, right now, you've got forced vaccinations coming to Austria. They are mandating that everyone get a vaccine in Austria. We're seeing, of course, COVID.
Wait, are they mandating that everyone get a vaccine, or everyone who doesn't have a vaccine just has to stay at home?
No, that's what they're doing right now. But by February, they are saying everyone must be vaccinated in Austria.
There were a few places, I believe, that said everyone had to be vaccinated or start getting fines, but I can't remember.
Austria is that
was
one.
okay.
Yeah. But going on here, the journalist James Dellingpole believes the Great Reset initiative is a coup by the global elite, and the plan is being deployed worldwide.
It can't possibly be a coup. The global elite is already in charge.
Even the web portal OpenDemocracy.net published an article that states, quote, "Conspiracy theories aside, there's something fishy about the Great Reset." The national broadcaster of the UK, the British Broadcasting Corporation...
Hold on, just saying there's something fishy about the Great Reset, but wanting to distance yourself from conspiracy theorists is so stupid. I hate that people have created a bad connotation with the word conspiracy theorists. All that means is that you're thinking there might be something fishy about this. That's all. Yep. So, you're distancing yourself from that word, or two words, while, being the definition of that word. So stupid.
The BBC says the Great Reset initiative was hijacked by conspiracy theories, and the initiative was simply drafted in June of 2020. Quote, "In June 2020, the Prince of Wales and the head of the annual Davos summit launched an initiative calling for the pandemic to be seen as a chance for what they called a great reset of the global economy," said the BBC. Well, that's not suspicious at all.
No, that's extremely suspicious. I mean, that's Dick Cheney levels of evil. Hey, there's this horrible thing happening. How can we exploit it for our own benefit?
See, it can't be the BBC is basically arguing that, it can't be a conspiracy. They're planning it in the open. The Reuters report...
but it's still a conspiracy.
Well, you have to be in secret to conspire.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
I did not know that.
The Reuters report further adds that illegitimate reporting on social media has fueled the conspiracy theories. Quote, this is from Reuters, "Social media users shared photographs of letters addressed to Dutch finance minister, whoever, the foreign minister of trade, saying they had been leaked. However, the leaked letters are in fact invitations to the 51st World Economic Forum annual meeting, which were released by the Dutch cabinet in response to an MP's request."
So the issue here is that these weren't leaked. They were officially released.
Correct.
And that's what makes it untrue.
The fact-checking articles published by the BBC and Reuters and others don't discuss some of the old material concerning the Great Reset that has been published by the WEF and other media outlets. BBC's article does delve into Klaus Schwab's book called COVID-19, The Great Reset. Schwab is, of course, the founder and chairman of the World Economic Forum. And there's a tweet here they cite from Crypto Alchemist 7 on Twitter. He says, replying to BBC News, in your article you missed out on the bit where Klaus Schwab said you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Can you explain this a little bit? Like, the BBC didn't talk about that.
Shocking.
And that's something that actually goes back for years. That's not a new statement from the World Economic Forum. Professor Schwab does speak about a wealth tax and ending fossil fuel subsidies, the BBC author says, but the scope is huge, covering technology, climate change, the future of work, international security, and other themes, and it's difficult to see precisely what the Great Reset might mean in practice. So even the BBC admits that they don't even really know what the Great Reset is, but it's not what those conspiracy theorists think.
Why would we decide we're going to listen to somebody like Klaus Schwab, who is an old rambling man, to recenter the way the world works? We already have that.
Because I wouldn't decide that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
Well, they think that he's important because he's teamed up with people like Bank of America and Walmart and all these politicians.
Nobody can even understand what he's saying.
That's by design. That's just a way for them to obfuscate things, to confuse us, so we think that things are improving as they take away our ability to own things and our ability to travel and exercise rights. We think that we're giving it up for a wonderful, beautiful change that's untested, but it's going to be great. They've thought about it a whole lot, and it's going to work just fine.
For 50 years.
But when you're a libertarian going, we could just try being free, they go, oh no, we've never tried that. We don't know what would happen. But when it's one of these talking heads, they're totally fine with it.
They say that the article about the you'll own nothing and you'll be happy has been scrubbed from the World Economic Forum site, but it still exists on Forbes, so you can still find it.
Scrubbing it from the memory. We're out of time for tonight. You can chat with us in the meantime on our chat server. That's chat.freetalklive.com. See you tomorrow.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and